Okay. Thank you all for coming to our meeting and welcome our city council for tonight, March 4th, 2020. Where there is a big crowd and some new faces that we don't see here very often, please make sure that either, if you haven't already, when you leave, you sign in on the computer so that we have a record for the minutes. And we will begin our meeting this evening with an invocation by Reverend Nancy Pearson from Community Presbyterian Church, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Adams.
Would you pray with me? Our gracious and loving God, we thank you for your faithfulness to us. We see your beauty in all of creation and we feel your presence among us. You have blessed each of us in abundant ways and we are grateful. Thank you for your love that you have lavished upon us and our families and friends. We give thanks today for our nation and for the freedoms that we enjoy because we are citizens of the United States. May we never take these freedoms for granted. Thank you for the freedom to vote and to elect leaders who serve in our governments. We pray today for people around the world who do not experience these kinds of freedoms and who are instead impacted by injustice. God, we pray for resources to reach those who are hungry or thirsty or without shelter or care today. And God, we pray especially for those in Tennessee who have been affected by the devastating tornadoes there. We pray for resources and aid to reach those who have experienced loss, comfort those who have lost family members and friends. Lord, open our hearts to see the needs of others and to work to find ways to meet those needs. We thank you for our community of Cedar City and for the leaders who guide us. Grant wisdom to those who will lead discussions and make decisions here at the City Council meeting tonight. Allow each person who speaks to listen well and to consider wisely what is best for all the people in our city. Lord, we pray that you would give direction to our council and its members tonight so that what they do and say would build a spirit of unity and partnership. We pray all these things with thanksgiving and with humble hearts in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much.
Would you all rise and follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will now move on to our agenda order approval. There is one additional item that we need to have on the agenda that that is not on there. It's a additional item. Number one is a local consent. We also have one more local consent for the Lighthouse Seafood and Grill that will be discussed right after that one. And so if there are any other changes, if not, can I get a motion that includes that to approve the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda with that addition.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we will move on to council business.
I don't want to be overly exuberant, but I am very excited about what's happening with the installation of fiber in our neighborhoods. I hope it's not disrupting people's neighborhoods too much. I know what they've done in our neighborhood. They've done it and replaced things back to what they were before they dug in, and just looking forward to having high-speed internet available to us later in the year.
And it's interesting, it started some competition with some of the other providers.
Isn't it interesting to see what the offers are from competitors now?
I was going to add that I received an email today from my provider.
I had one at my door, so.
Mayor, I would like to visit with the appropriate individuals, probably yourself and perhaps City Manager Chief Adams, and the appropriate things. I want to talk about our speed on Main Street. I think that we have got to discuss speed limits on Main Street. I think they're too fast. I think people drive them too fast. pretty much all the way, but particularly in our main historic downtown core. But I would like to visit. I realize it's a state road, so I know that we have to meet with the appropriate individuals, but I really like to put this out here for review because I've had several business owners come to me and ask me to review it, and I believe it does need some further discussion.
Just let us know. We will accommodate a meeting.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other comments? I know a number of you have been up to the legislature. We have a week and a half left, and there have been various different pieces of legislation that will have varying ranges of impact on us that we'll see what happens in the next week and a half. But we appreciate those of you who have been up to represent the both your own private organizations, but also the city as well.
And along those lines, Madam Mayor, last week at the State Chamber Conference, Cedar City was the best represented Chamber of Commerce in the state. And so we do appreciate that our chamber is very active and vocal in the state Chamber Association.
It makes a difference. So
Congratulations.
thank you to Chris as well. Okay, we'll move on to staff comments if there are any. No? Okay, then we will move on to public comments with our public agenda. If there's anyone here that wants to address the council not about an agenda item, now is your opportunity. Just make sure you state your name. As you know the drill, or I will cut you off and get you to state your name. So come on up, Chris.
Chris McCormick, Cedar City Chamber of Commerce. I wanted to thank you for this time. We have been waiting for the Kim C. Gardner Policy Institute to put together the final report on the study that was done for Vision 2050, the community survey that was done. We had 950 different people that took the survey, 750 plus that completed the full survey. The data took a while to put together. As to that, we would like to have the opportunity to bring one of the people from Kim C. Gardner Institute to come and address all of you and share their methodology and answer any questions you may have. But I brought the 5 council members and the mayor and the city manager, each a copy for their review. And then we'll be holding some other meetings in the future and would like to invite you all to be participating in those as well. So.
Is this the final draft?
This is
For
the final of the
publication?
survey.
So if we published it, you'd be okay?
Pardon me?
If we published it online, would you be okay?
I'm perfectly okay with that. I'll send you a digital copy as well.
Oh, that
Chris,
would
could
be,
I just one
because we'll
quick-
put it with the end of the minutes and everything. So
That's great.
there's a digital one. Renan you will be her best friend after that.
She was going to have to retype all that, and it's just,
I know, right? Or scan it. No,
Chris?
I will send that to you.
Chris, one quick question before you leave the microphone. For the folks that are watching us and for those in the audience, I believe I know the answer, but would you address the total numbers? Because I believe while it may seem a small number in the large of the 30,000 some odd people in our community, I think it represents a very good showing for the survey. But would you just address that momentarily?
So when we first met with the Kim C. Gardner Policy Institute, we also met with, if you remember, Envision Utah and some of the other companies out there that do these types of surveys. And it's very difficult to get input from a community. And they said if we had 400 people, that would be a pretty strong representation. If we had 600 people, that was the optimum that we were looking for. Anything above that was considered exceptional. And so Cedar City definitely rose to the occasion and we had an exceptional showing for this survey.
Statistically.
Great.
So
So from the statistical point of view, these would give us a very good trends and very good ideas of our community and the citizens' feelings on where the direction is or should be going.
correct. And then also in addition to that, we will be holding some open houses and we want to do that in concert with the gentleman that you hired so that we're not doing anything contrary or against what he's doing. We just want to contribute
So
to that effort and make it available to the public.
just to make things clear, the one we hired to do the master plan, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank
I
you.
was like,
I-
let's
I
just
should have
make
been-
that.
Yes, I'm glad you
So
said
that
that.
people are like, what are we talking about?
Sorry. No, that's great.
All right. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I look forward to. And as always, if we have questions, we can call you, right?
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
What should we call you?
Where that's a
That's an old term. Thank you. Thanks for what you did on this.
Thank you, Peter.
this is great.
Oh my goodness.
Wonderful.
Tiny
We
type.
appreciate it.
Night reading
It's
material.
tiny type.
Between that and the ASAP information we got last week.
All right. Are there any other public comments not related to
To,
an agenda item?
if they follow the
I have
same.
no idea if there's any out in the hall. Will you ask if there is any in the hall?
We do have a few seats up here scattered. If anybody needs a seat, there's 1 or 2 seats here and there's a seat over there.
No, we're good? Okay, spectacular. Then we'll move on to our business agenda with our public portion with item number 1, local consent for Mandarin Restaurant, 241 North Main.
Good evening, council, mayor, and staff. We have one on the agenda and then one that was added. The first one is for Kong Ling
You didn't
Wang.
say who you were.
Sorry, Chief Adams. I practiced that all night too. For the Mandarin Restaurant is the first one, the new one there where the Depot Grill is. And then the second one is for Octavio Mejia. And they have to get their application in right away. And the reason for this change is it's a name change and that requires another DABC license. So we have run backgrounds on both of those individuals, both for the Lighthouse and for Mandarin. And found nothing in the background that would disqualify them.
So when you said Octavio Mejia, that was referring to the Lighthouse?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes,
sorry.
sorry.
I was confused there.
Yeah,
Thank you.
bet. Any
So,
questions?
so will they have this application and stuff in process prior to us actually voting on this next week?
I think it's next Tuesday.
Okay, so if you would be okay with both of these going on the consent, one would be going on the consent for us to vote. The other would be ratifying that I had signed it. And so they could get their application in prior to that.
Okay, fine.
So everything looks good.
I have no issue with that going
No.
on consent.
Me either.
That's fine. Okay.
So if you're okay with
Yeah.
the process,
Yeah.
the Lighthouse one would be just a vote to ratify me
Yeah.
signing it. The other one will be
Yeah.
the normal.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So both will go on the consent agenda. All right. Item number 2, consider an ordinance approving and addressing an address change in the Canyons at Eagle Ridge subdivision. With Go Civil. Arlo. Yeah.
I know it's hard to hear out there, isn't it?
It's getting a little rambunctious out there.
But you still have to say your name too.
Arlo with Go Civil Engineering. So what we have is a address change for the Canyon at Eagle Ridge. Just an extra number ended up in the address that we just need to change.
Is that just a typographical error on when it was submitted?
Yeah. Carter knows what I'm talking about.
So the city council is aware, staff is working on a proposal to allow changes like this to be done on the staff level. But currently we don't have a mechanism for that right now. That's why it's coming before the council.
Okay.
All right. Are there any questions where this is an ordinance? It will have to go on the action agenda.
Yep. I just as a former pizza delivery driver, I thank you for making this change.
Yes, it was confusing. We were already working on a house plan on this one, and
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Item number 3, consider a request to expand the use of water at the Cedar Canyon Retreat located at 3243 East Highway 14. I was gonna say, I don't know for sure.
Jim Rushton, David Clark, Stan Plew, but he was getting lightheaded because it was a little warm in here, so he stepped out for a second. So, but we wanted to come before council to just kind of, we've started the process to build an RV park up the canyon, and we are currently on Cedar City water. We have a historic agreement that, in our view, states that we have access to use a 1-inch water line that can't be expanded. So we are just here to say, can we continue to use it the way the historic agreement is in place? And then Dave probably has some information he could share as well, but.
Let me just say a few things. So just to give you a little background in the public. So
Sorry, Tyler, it's kind of loud. Could you speak?
Yeah. So just to give a little background for the council and for the public, on April 17th of 2019, the city received a conditional use permit from the county. This conditional use permit came to 10 North Main Street, got thrown in our general mailbox. Where it went from there, no one seems to know. A part of that part of that conditional use permit stated that this property up the canyon was proposed to be developed from a single residence with a shop into a RV park that had 20 spots for trailers, 2 bathrooms. I think there's 5 spots for tents. And then the original residence would be used for kind of a short-term rental. Following that, Mr. Clark reached out to Mr. Mitchell in the water department to get a letter from him stating that we would provide water to this property. If I remember right, you needed that to meet some state requirements.
That's correct. The county wanted, it was like, there were several different steps that we had to meet. One, that we had the water, then that went to the Division of Drinking Water that said we had water. And then after them, then the state health department over septic systems did their approval. And then once we had both of their approvals, then the county gave them a building permit. So that was the process.
Yeah. So that letter came in, they went and got their building permit. And then earlier this year, Mr. Rushton and I got an email from Mr. Clark that sent me Robbie's letter. And I think Mr. Rushton and I had a little conversation on what that meant. Then I started digging into it. My concern is this. Previously on that property, it was used for a residence. And what I've learned since sending my letter, also a shop for making like hand carts. My concern was, in my mind, this was going from a residential use to a commercial use, which expanded the previous use authorized up there. So we did do some digging. We did eventually find this agreement. I found it yesterday, and the agreement doesn't really give a lot of specification. It just says, hey, Isla Quarry, for giving us this property, we're going to install a 1-inch culinary water connection without cost or charge. So my concern, and the reason why I wanted this brought to the city council, is because, in my opinion, this is changing the use from residential to commercial, and per city ordinance, that approval needs to come from the governing body.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but that didn't say anything about whether it was used for residential or commercial at the time.
Correct.
It's a 1979
I have a question on that original agreement. As I was reading through it, at one spot, it's dated the 3rd day of May in 1979. But down at the bottom on the signature, it's dated February 1983. I mean, nearly 4 years. Do we know? I mean, I know you weren't here, Tyler. I'm just trying to figure out what happened.
Yeah, I was 2 years old when this started.
Yeah, don't even go there.
I sometimes, and I've seen this multiple times, where the signing date is accurate, but then they're basically putting into writing and memorializing an agreement from a few years prior.
I see.
Is that your analysis as well?
You can come in. Will you just state your name and
Stan
then you
Plough.
can? Okay. Perfect.
We have spent some time at Iron County Records researching these documents. In fact, Isla Quarry owned the property for about 20 years. And then she got the agreement in 79 to get water to the property. That changed the use of the property. She sold the property soon after that to a Larson family in St. George. They held the property for a very short time and sold to Del Rich, who was a realtor developer.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 83, as it says on that letter, when Allen's bought the property, I'm sure they wanted some verification of the water situation. And so those were coupled together.
I see.
But in the 1983 document and deed recorded, it states specifically about water being provided according to the 1970. It refers back to the 1979 agreement.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
that.
Can I ask a practical question? Can a 1-inch
Can you,
line serve?
whatever, can you pull your mic up just to, where there's so many people here, we're going to have to make a
And can a 1-inch
specific
line
effort.
serve the purpose that you're intending? I just,
Well, people, RVers are used to using 60 gallons a week. What they can have in their RV, in their tank. We designed the system so that, and this was per state regulations, 100 gallons a day per unit. That's 2,000 gallons per unit. There is an old tank on the property that we've been looking at the tank. It was full of water when they purchased the property. It's in good shape. The tank has been there. I mean, it's a very old tank. The tank company went out of business 20 years ago. But they've been inside the tank to verify that it's a good tank. It's been in use, we think, since 1985. The Blaine or the Allens had a very large garden. They did use quite a bit of water. The garden's gone. Anyway, so we designed the system for 2,000 gallons a day. The tank will store 12,000 gallons. So the reason we're utilizing the tank is so that there is a reservoir for fire. The wildland fire code says that if you have a certain storage, then you can have your development. And we've worked through the fire marshal here in Cedar and the county fire marshal to get those approvals. So that's, yes, the 1-inch connection will satisfy the need that we have for the project.
I have a question, and I've asked you this before privately, but I just want to ask you publicly, Tyler, if the council were inclined to pursue this with some stipulations, basically authorize you to pursue a contract of some sort or agreement with the city with certain terms, I mean, is that type of approach acceptable?
Yeah, that's an option that if the city council wanted to go down, where we could work out some sort of middle ground, I guess.
Right. One thing I was kind of thinking, we've got a restaurant and some other homes right there. In addition to some of the, these issues with, to what extent did we have notice? What was the meaning of the letter from the city? Anyway, to just clear up some of those discrepancies, I'd be inclined to pursue some kind of agreement where, maybe you guys can use the water to fill your tank, but it's limited to the wee hours of the morning, so that you can top off your tank and not impact anyone else. If you're in a high use situation, I would think you can fill that tank in between the hours of 1 and 4 in the morning. I'm not sure, but I'd like to maybe have you guys pursue those types of discussions with the city and maybe looking into, to whatever extent, whatever volume of water you're using to maybe, bring some rights as part of that agreement. Anyway, but I'd like to see something where we can make this work. There's a lot of talk about what's going on up the canyon in the future. And I think things like this, where people are having an opportunity to experience it and camp outside, is a great way to do it, rather than some of the other types of developments we could be seeing. So I would like to encourage this type of activity and be able to address some of the reliance that you guys have had upon the correspondence with the city.
I'd like to know from the letter that came from the city water department in September, when you received that, what was the expectation? Because I read it this way, and I'll just read the last sentence, just for those that don't have the privilege of seeing it. This is a one-inch connection which cannot be enlarged or expanded, but will remain as per the historic agreement. And now I interpret that the historic agreement was for that home that was there and for the garden or whatever was there. I'm just wondering what your interpretation of that was led to believe.
Yeah, there is one line after that in the letter. Could you read that last line?
Yes, this is a reliable source of water for the subject property.
And that response, the reliable source of water for the subject property, in response to a request to build this RV park, which was in the conditional use permit, to us, that was the interpretation. It's suitable for this property. Now, as to the other point about the historic document, we find it interesting that this was referred to as not meeting the historic document, but we didn't get the historic document until I think yesterday or the day before as to see what that word actually were. So we're a little bit thinking maybe someone either didn't know what was in the historic document or they were hoping. Now, we did receive some other documents that were historically significant related to the property up by Milts. But this historic document pertaining to this 1-inch connection really is pretty clear if you read the agreement that Isla Corey worked with the city to don't give some land. She got a sign and she got the water rights, or water 1-inch line.
So are you telling me that your interpretation then of that final sentence, and this is a reliable source of water for the subject property, I interpret that saying, yes, it is a reliable source. The water will be there. It is a 1-inch line and it can be used for the property, but based on what the historic agreement was, not what the change was, or proposed change, excuse me.
So we came to the city and we were hoping that maybe we could get a bigger connection because, 1-inch line for what we were trying to do probably we had to figure out another way to make that work.
Right.
So we were asking for a 2 or a 4-inch connection, and our interpretation from the letter was, no, you have a 1-inch connection and it can't be expanded. So we can't get a 2 or a 4-inch line.
Okay.
So when you talked with Robbie at the water department, did you tell him that you were
Yes.
doing the RV park at
Yes.
that time?
Yes.
He was aware of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that was and I told him that I needed this letter for the state for all the reasons that I said previously, that we needed this connection. And that's why when we read the letter, we were looking at the 1-inch connection, that it was the connection that he was talking about could not be enlarged, that we were stuck with that 1-inch connection. And he referred to the historic agreement, but the historic agreement was to a vacant piece of property that had no use and no stipulations to it. It was just a 1-inch connection. And they've paid the water. They've paid every bit of water that they've used for the last 50 years.
But in respect to that historic agreement, that place has been used for a single-family residence for a long time.
You're right.
And our water folks have maintained that system for a single-family residence. So it's not a leap to interpret that in light of the historic use that our water guys were used to as a single-family residence on that property.
Right. And we're not disputing that there's a potential for more water to be used. We're not disputing that. We're just coming and asking you to honor the historic agreement that the 1-inch water would be provided, that they would pay for what they use like they always have, and that we could just move on with the project. There's already been significant investment.
Could you perhaps quantify, well, if you don't want to, that's okay, but what sort of investment have you incurred to this point based on that August letter?
We purchased the property a year ago, February. Jim is actually related to the Allens. That's how we kind of came in. So we're very intimately familiar with the Allen family and what they have left there. It's quite a legacy in terms of his involvement in wagons and so on. We invested in buying the property about $300,000. We have a construction loan. We got a loan. I think we're about $300,000 on the construction loan, and we're a little over half completed with Blackburn as the contractor. So it's right now he's putting in water line and then power lines and then finish the roads, and we hope to be operational in May. On the other side of that, we immediately fixed the cabin up and started to advertise it in VRBO. As we checked with the county, it fit with our conditional use permit. So it's been on VRBO since September last year. Yeah.
So from the county standpoint, I mean, when the conditional use permit came to us, I guess unaddressed, I don't know why the county wouldn't know to who to send that to in the city. That has me a little worried. But it came to us because of the city water connection.
Because we own land near this property.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
it's
and
just giving us notice if we wanted to show up to the planning commission
Got it.
meeting to.
Thank you.
Councilman Phyllis, we tried to make this clear at the beginning. We are bordered, and there's a document in that presentation you got.
Yeah.
We are bordered by the city on both sides on the highway. We want to be good neighbors because we are going to be sitting there nestled between your boundaries. And so we really want this to be an amicable resolve, however it comes out. We think there's a lot of potential to do some good things. Coal Creek's right there and some other opportunities for recreation and so on. So we want that understood above all, that we do want this to work amicably between both parties.
Do you presently have any underground water on this property? Any kind of water rights?
Not presently. No.
Pardon me?
Not presently, no.
Well, no matter what, I would assume this will go on the action agenda, so we have a week
yeah.
to think about it. And are there any other comments or questions?
Well, I guess my only other comment that I have is now that we've sort of understood that the connection is what it is and can change, my other concern is how will it affect the existing businesses around there, which Councilman Melling addressed it briefly. And what is the water usage going to change from what to what? And if it goes beyond a certain point, then how do we compensate for that with the higher use of water than maybe the previous owner was using? And we could go back and look at meters and see what the usage was and those kinds of things to determine that.
I think it's safe to say that Dave Clark did all the research on RV park usage and typically what that is. I know myself from being an RV user for a number of years that RV users are very conscious about the use of water. They carry, as he described, 50 or 60 gallons on board. They try to use that water, but they do need showers because the small showers in most trailers or RVs are not that great. But that's an issue. But as we looked at the usage that has been there, 31,000 gallons was used in 1 month prior to us buying the property because they have a large garden. And that garden is now gone because we had to make that as a place for our leach lines and septic system. Since we got the property, have actually had months where we had 45,000 gallons used, but we determined we have a water leak. So that's something we've had to take care of.
Sorry, so you said 31,000 and sorry, over here. You said 31. It's okay. So you said 31,000 and you said the state estimate is usually a high estimate, but it's 100 gallons a day per stall. So that's 2,000. So 60,000. So basically a worst case scenario, 60,000 gallons per month, according to the state. At full occupancy. And that's.
Yes, that would be at full occupancy and 100% use.
Right. Okay.
Well, and then I'm curious, because you are an RVer and others maybe, they do carry that water with them. But generally, after they've camped for a week or 5 days or 3 days, they want to fill up that again before they go on to the next excursion. So they are going to be using water to fill it back up.
You are correct on that. The other issue with RVers is trusting the water. So a lot of times they'll get their water in their tank from a trusted source. And then when they're on the road, they're careful about where but you would have people filling up. That is correct.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Is there anything else you want to add? Yeah, go for it.
So just one real quick side comment. So a couple weeks ago, we had that discussion with Coldwell Banker about their advertising sign.
Right, correct.
So on this agreement, which addresses this issue, paragraph 3 gives Isla Corey and her assigns the right to place one advertising sign on said property as allowed by law.
I read that.
So thankfully, I'd written the contract and sent him over, and then read this. So we'll be moving forward with them. Like this agreement says, there will be no contract coming to the city council to approve.
Right.
So.
Thank you.
Side note. And we will vote on this item next week. Same time, same place. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
All right. Item number 4, consider historic preservation strategy. Consider preservation strategies for the historic preservation recognition survey, the historic downtown core area. And we'll have this by Janet.
Hello, my name is Janet McCrae, and I am on the Historic Preservation Commission. And Elise Carden, the chair, sends her apologies that she can't be here tonight, but she had a medical appointment to attend to. In January, Brad Abrams from the Economic Development Department at the city, Cedar City, sent out an RFP to invite consultants to apply to do a reconnaissance level survey of historic buildings for the downtown core area. And this is just the initial step in the consideration of a new National Registered Commercial Historic District, because as you know, we have a residential historic district. And this contract would be just for surveying and to identify the greatest concentration of historic buildings to define a potential downtown commercial district. And the Historic Preservation Commission defined an area for the consultant to review that includes Main Street from 200 South to the Iron County Tourism Building, and then 100 East to 300 West. And there are approximately 373 buildings in that area. And establishing a historic commercial district does not grant the city any enforcement powers as to what a property owner can do with their property. What the benefit it gives is tax credits, state and federal tax credits for the property owners and developers if they restore those historic buildings. For instance, there's a 20% federal tax credit for commercial buildings. There's a 20% state tax credit for residential buildings. And in some cases, property owners could get a combined 40% tax credit for residential rental properties. And I think that has been at the forefront of a lot of city council issues in the past. And if developers could get a 40% tax credit, that might give the incentive to preserve those properties. And that would be very positive for the city. The Historic Preservation Commission we received one proposal, and that was from Kirk Huffaker Preservation Strategies in Salt Lake City. And it was reviewed with 2 HPC committee members, the city manager and the city planner. And we reviewed it and decided that Kirk Huffaker is more than qualified. He's got over 25 years of experience in the historic preservation field. And the survey would not be at any cost to the city. It would be funded by the CLG, which is the Certified Local Government. And it would be in accordance with survey requirements by the State Historic Preservation Society and the National Park Service. And the max budget for this is $9,000. And Kirk Huffaker came in at $88.52. So he was about $148 lower than that. And the target completion date would be the end of May.
So we bring this to you not to vote on it next week. The dollar thresholds are low enough where staff can award that contract where there's money available and everything else. We bring this to you to present this item to you, to let you know that this is going on and this is the initial step. This is something that the city hasn't really undertaken since 1994.
It was
92?
2004 when it was
2004?
established. Yeah.
So we don't do this very often. This is something new. It's a new idea, and that's kind of why we asked the committee to come and present what we're doing.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you
Scott,
so
do
much.
you have anything?
No, I
to
think you
add?
did a great job. Thank you very much. We've been working on this a long time in the Historic Preservation Commission, and we think it's a great first step, because if we get the state behind it and the federal after the reconnaissance survey is done, then we have the ability to do a lot more from a ordinance standpoint, trying to help protect our historic buildings.
And again, the big benefit is that there could be a potential 40% tax credit for developers who restore historic buildings, rental. So we think that's a win-win for everybody.
So how does it affect the individual property owners? Do they still have the right, even if they get put into this historical district? Are they required to comply with it, or
No, they're not required to comply. They're encouraged by the tax credits.
Right.
So it's up to them whether they want to take advantage of that.
If they don't
Okay,
take the
thanks,
tax
John.
credits, there's no restrictions on what they do.
That's correct.
When they do accept the tax credits on their property, then that property is restricted as to the future uses consistent with the historic preservation of that property.
Okay, thank you.
Are there
And
any
I'd like to thank the city manager for his help on this.
any other comments, questions? Thank you so much, Janet.
Okay,
Thank you, Janet.
Okay, we'll move on to our next item. Item number 5, consider mining lease agreement with Rocky Ridge Rock Incorporated. Yeah, that kind of.
Good evening, Council. Ryan Marshall, Public Works Director. Tonight we have on the agenda for you to consider as a mining lease agreement. Give you a little bit of history on this while we're waiting for the map to come up. About a month ago, we went through a mining lease with Blackburn Ltd., and that was concerning a property which is north of the airport runway, across Airport Road, and up by where our approach lights are. We issued that lease to them. They're going to be it's actually a renewal of a lease they already had, but they're going to be mining some rock out of there. A lot of that rock is going to be sold and used for our airport project that's going to be starting in March for the base and everything in there. So that is north of the approach lights. To the west of the approach lights, there's a private property with Rocky Ridge where they're already doing some mining of some surface gravel. After we finished all of these projects, we noticed that there is a sliver of city-owned property that butts up to the side of Rocky Ridge and Blackburn lease that they have above them. It's a very small piece of property, but what it does is it helps to square off that private gravel business that's right there, be able to square it off, mine that gravel that's right there, and use it to haul it to the airport for our project, and be able to, they've created a road and a bridge across Coal Creek right there that they can just shuttle that rock right straight across the road and onto the airport. So what we did is we put an RFP out there for that little sliver of land for them to go out and mine it. We put that out there. It was posted and in the public for 7 days, and we have, is this a pointer?
Yes, green line.
It's not a very good pointer.
It's not.
That's not working too well.
I never can see that green up there. Green line there.
That's better. So the property we're talking about here is this is the road, Airport Road, that goes north of the runway right here. This right here is already currently owned by Rocky Ridge. It's private property. About right here, and all of this up here is the lease that we renewed with Blackburn Ltd. That they're going to be mining. So the sliver of property we're talking about is just this little pie shape right here. So what it'll do is it'll allow Rocky Ridge to mine this little section right here. They'll use a road right here. They've put a bridge across Coal Creek, and they'll be able to shuttle all the material that they mine from here and here across to our airport property. Is what we're being told that's what they're going to be using, and that's what they've done. So we put that out for bid. We got one bid on it, one RFP that was returned, and it was with Rocky Ridge Rock Incorporated. It's for 1.95 acres of city land that's right there. The lease is for a 5-year lease. They have proposed to pay 70 cents per cubic yard, which is a little bit more than what our last lease was with Blackburn. So what we're asking you to consider is that lease, to be able to award that to Rocky Ridge and to have the mayor sign the lease agreement after next week.
Would we be doing this lease agreement if we weren't redoing the runway at the airport?
Probably not. Probably, well, it was kind of identified when we did this lease and we noticed that the city had just a little bit of property there. But while we were working through the details of this larger lease, we got some more clarification from the FAA on what their requirements as far as how far they had to be away from these Mauser lights. And it was 250 off a center line. And that opened up that little pie piece right there. We've always figured it needed to be more, but they came back with a clarification that it's only 250 feet. So that's kind of what opened this up to be available to be mined. And that combined with the fact that Rocky Ridge is entering into a contract with our subcontractor for the airport for the rock, kind of both of those spurred this to be issued.
So I read through the agreement, and we've got many more lawyers up on this bench than myself, but I want to point out items, I think it's 8 and 9. My question is, after the 5-year lease, or whether it's renewed and it's 10 years, whatever it is, what kind of recourse do we have as a city to go back and make sure that the area is returned to a usable space, particularly in our own property that we own, and it's not just a big hole?
Well, a couple issues on that is, number one, this is a private gravel pit, so we're not going to have any say on that portion right there.
Correct.
The only portion we would have any say is just this little sliver right here. In talking with Blake DeMille and Rocky Ridge, talking about that, he said he would be willing, because we're going to have that same issue with that larger portion to the north after the 20-year agreement is up. What do we do about reclamation of that?
Correct.
And what he has said is that we put in there, we made it a little broad because we don't know what the reclamation possibilities are right now with that. So we made that there will be some kind of agreement between the city and between him that we will agree upon how that will be restored. He is aware that one of the federal clauses is that if it is needed to be restored for FAA use, and that would be if we ever extended the runway or something like that, that it would be put back to its original designation. And he is aware of that, and he will agree to that in the contract. But as far as the short term, what we do to reclaim that, we've just kind of left that up to, it's going to be an agreement between the city and them.
So there are some advantages to us as a corporate entity to have an open pit. One is water recharge. Given its location off the nose of the runway, probably not the best spot for water recharge with the waterfowl issues. But another one is currently we operate a landfill on the airport property. And it's restricted landfill. It doesn't take everybody's household garbage, but it takes concrete and dirt and rock and asphalt and all those other types of things that we tend to want to move during construction projects. That pit is not limitless. It's going to fill up one day. And the city will need to move to another location to dispose of these things that we keep generating.
Okay.
So that could be a way to reclaim this property in the future. Now, that's speculative and it's kind of way down the road, but those are typical things that the city has been interested in, these types of pits.
No, and it very likely could be a good use for it. I just want to make sure that we are thinking about this and not just the ones around the airport. If we have other lease agreements for gravel or whatever, that we are thinking about how it is reclaimed after that pit is finished on the property that we own.
Yeah, and there's various, like Mr. Bittman said, there's various options that we can do there, and we just don't know which one of those is going to serve us best at that time. And so it's kind of hard to write that into a contract, what they're going to do. So we've made an agreement that they're going to do. This is a small enough piece of property that if worst case scenario, if we did require them to return it to the current level and stuff, it's not going to be as big of a hit because it's, what was it, 40,000 cubic yards?
Yeah, well, I see that you do have a proposal in there for an agreement. I just wanted to make sure that we're thinking about this for all of our lease agreements on the pits and the gravel.
Yeah, some of the larger leases are going to be more of a discussion as to how we reclaim those.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other comments, questions? Would you be okay with that going on consent?
Consent.
Okay. We'll move to our staff portion. Consider resolution accepting the city's annual municipal wastewater planning program. report. You guys are all in for such a treat that are here tonight to hear
Yes,
this
they
report.
are. Eric Bonzo, Wastewater Superintendent. Mayor, council staff, it's good to be here. I like coming once a year to just kind of give you an update. As I'm required every year by the state of Utah and the Division of Water Quality to complete an annual municipal wastewater prevention program report that I need to prepare, submit to the council, and submit back to the state of Utah. In this report, it talks into our sanitary sewer collection system throughout the city, and for the collection lines in the county that is connected to our city main trunk lines. It also talks into our wastewater treatment plant, and so it's quite a cumbersome report. It's quite long. I have to file it electronically. I made an assessment of this report to kind of give you a briefing on each, the collection system and the treatment plant. For the collection system serving Cedar City and Iron County, there was one sanitary sewer backup overflow for 2019. We maintained over 240 miles of sewer line and over 4,000 manholes. 44.4 miles of sewer lines were cleaned. 39.3 miles were videoed. We completed 12 major sewer line repairs for a total of 388 feet of sewer line that was repaired. That we prioritize on a list as our crews video these, and then every year we take the ones that are in the most need and go in and take care of these. 271 new residential sewer connections in Cedar City and Iron County this past year. 32 new commercial connections. 948 new people served. With a total of 7,606 effective residential connections for Cedar City and Iron County. With a total of 1,847 commercial connections, for a total sewer connections of 9,453. Our wastewater treatment plants, what serves Cedar City, Enoch, and Iron County, approximate total population of about 42,000 people. There were 0 bypasses or overflows for 2019. There were 0 exceedances for permit effluent requirements. Our average influent flow for 2019 was about 2.8 million gallons per day. Our loadings coming into the plant, our BOD, which is a biological oxygen demand, that is the strength of the wastewater coming in, was about 283 milligrams per liter, about 9.7 milligrams per liter going out the effluent, for a total of probably about a 96% reduction, which is really good. Average BOD loadings in pounds per day were 6,769. Average influent TSS, which is total suspended solids, was 276 milligrams per liter in the influent, 5.1 milligrams per liter in the effluent. Total loadings in pounds of total suspended solids, about 6,602. When we talk about the pounds of BOD and the TSS, our plant design right now is about 12,000 pounds for each. So we're about 50% at this point. Our total effluent inorganic nitrogen, which is a big item on our discharge permit, we have to be below 10 milligrams per liter. Last year, we averaged 4.2 MGL for the year. Last year, we produced 861 dry metric tons of unclassified biosolids that were disposed at the Iron County landfill. We had our annual site visit and inspection from the Division of Water Quality a couple weeks ago with our permit writer, Jeff Studenka. It was quite an intensive site visit and inspection. We got the report back a week ago with no deficiencies found or corrective actions required. This is just shows you the dedication and how much pride these operators take in their job. And in our collection system, we run a 4-man crew. And for these guys to get these kind of footages every year and to keep our sewer backups down, it's just a great compliment to my staff. So, any questions?
I was just curious, how did you track the battery plug up to the correctional facility?
We got a call that morning of a sewer backup at the Iron County Jail. We got there, got the cleaning truck on site to immediately break the blockage. We got it broke. What we do is we put baskets in the sewer. So anything that we break with the jetter going up will catch coming downstream. And then we put our vacuum in and suck it all in the truck. When we went to empty this truck, there were literally 400 to 600 AA batteries, empty toothpaste containers, toothbrushes. It was crazy. And so we got the pre-treatment personnel into the jail to talk best management practices, work with the jail commander. And I sped up the inspection and cleaning of this line to every quarter for the next year so we can just monitor and see if it's getting any better. So hopefully, yeah.
All right, thanks.
Is there anything else that, we've got a lot of members of the public here. Is there anything that members of the public can do to make your job easier?
Flushable wipes. Do not put them down a toilet. They're a sewer worker's worst nightmare. They don't break down. And all it takes is a intruding lateral in the sewer. One gets hung up, another one gets hung up, but all of a sudden you're starting to get a ball, and it'll cause sewer backups. Treatment plant, same thing. They just don't break down. So we're pulling all these out in our screenings, and they cause a mess. Another big thing is grease. Absolutely no grease down kitchen sinks, because grease is probably the number one culprit of sewer backups. Pour it down hot, gets out on that cool line, solidifies, starts to build grease layers. I've seen lines that's been 50, 60, 80% blocked off by big old grease balls in sewer lines. So if you can not put it down the sewer, be great.
Keep us out of a crappy situation.
Exactly.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Eric, thank you. Truly, we are so fortunate to have Eric and his team at our plant. They do an amazing job.
I think that acknowledges the great work. Cool.
Yeah, it's a big deal that you get like a whole audience applause for your report, Eric. I mean, that's not often that everyone is excited over the wastewater planning report. All right. So this will go in action so you can approve it, or where it's our resolution next week. Item number 7, consider an ordinance amending where notice signs are posted on property proposed to be rezoned.
So in chapter 26, article 12, the city outlines where we physically post signs to give neighbors notice that surrounding property is coming through for a proposed rezoning. Currently, the language reads that it's the signs to be posted at all points where city streets intersect within 10 feet of the street right-of-way line. And as we looked at that, we thought, well, that might be just a little unnecessarily confusing. So we're just proposing that the sign be posted on the property proposed to be rezoned. Said sign shall be visible from all abutting streets and must face every street surrounding the property. So if it's a corner lot, there'd be 2 signs, one for each street. And this came through the planning commission, was given a positive recommendation.
I personally, I do appreciate, there were some concerns about this that I had calls about. I brought attention to the fact, though, this does not change the mailing requirement whatsoever. So still, those within a 300-foot radius are still going to receive notice in the mail. This just simply clarifies for longer streets or anything like that, which streets do we have to face? I don't think anyone's going to be harmed by this, and I appreciate the clarification.
I know that it does specify the size of the signage, the minimum requirements, and I think that's appropriate. this is a printed sign, right?
Correct.
Of some sort?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
All right. Are there any comments, questions on that one? All right. This will also go on our action where it's an ordinance. Okay. Item number 8, public hearing to consider a resolution revising the 2019-2020 fiscal year budget.
Jason Norris, Finance. Good evening, Council.
Good evening, sir.
We are going to do a revision to our fiscal year 20 budget. I have a number of items. Some are cleanup items to just get some accounts matching up with some recent activity. And we also have a few new items that I'm bringing before the council. So I have a summary, and I know it's a little bit boring, but I'm going to go through them one by one with the council. So the first item is we've increased our administrative travel budget by $1,446. We had a few of our finance staff go back east for a FEMA kind of emergency response training for the financial aspects of what to do in a disaster. Iron County was kind enough to fund most of that travel for us, as well as the federal government uses their facilities back east. So that is our first item. Our second is Councilman Phillips applied for and received a census grant for $5,000. That's included also in the administrative budget. And we recently received our bill for elections. It was quite a bit higher than our original $30,000 budget. So we've increased that to $44,230. I believe it's because it's mail-in ballots is quite a bit more expensive than our traditional methods. However, that's okay. We seem to get good participation with that. So,
And the programming that goes along with that.
Is that cost shared by number of registered voters in municipalities, or how is that distributed, those costs?
Well,
It's our cost for our election.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
just our
for
own
the city
election.
election.
Thank you.
The county pays for the county-wide elections.
All right, thank you.
But knowing that this cost is increasing, I mean, we've kind of had 30,000 as a budget line item.
Mhm.
This next budget, now
Right.
that we're actually getting more accurate numbers,
Mhm.
we're going to make those adjustments with the upcoming budget that we'll bring before you.
Thank you.
So.
okay, the next section, so the city's just paying that. That's just our cost on elections. The next section is related to the police department. They have various side items they'll be involved with throughout the year, and they'll be reimbursed from other agencies for various purposes. So they're just kind of restoring their costs into their payroll line items, training, things of that nature. They're all of those are under $3,000. I can go one by one, but we're just backfilling those budgets for the work they've done for other groups.
Mhm.
Within the fire department, as you're aware, we send our crews out for other states to fight in fires throughout the year, and we get reimbursements for those. We have a criteria on how we backfill all the budgets from going out on those fires. So
Can I pause you for 2 seconds? Just so Tyler knows, or Councilman Milling, with that program, we did do a business plan and everything else on how the money can be spent when they go out and all of that. So that ties into this, just for your knowledge.
Okay.
There is a whole business plan that explains what the program is, how it can be utilized, how the funds can be, just all of that.
Yeah. So they did $298,988 in gross revenue. We backfill all the payroll. We pay rates for maintenance on our equipment, use of our equipment, use of our turnouts and uniforms and things of that nature, fuel, etc. And then they're also transferring $141,000 into their capital reserve. We try to kind of build that up and purchase equipment that we put back into this program. It's put up on national boards so that certain large equipment and crews can be requested to go out and fight fires. So we're cleaning that up and restoring those dollars. The next section is for animal control. Chief Adams. Councilman Phillips had a bunch of questions, and I didn't really remember everything we had going on with those changes.
But you have to say your name.
Darren Adams, Police Department.
Thank you.
Do you have specific questions?
Well, I just wanted to know with the animal pound fees, have we really had that many more animals come through the shelter, or what's the big increase
Yeah.
there?
So I've got that in the budget that you'll see here in a few weeks as far as statistics on how many animals have come through there. But what we had hoped with this new shelter has come to pass to some extent. There's more foot traffic. There's more people coming in, more animals coming in, more animals going out.
More neutering, more
correct. And so we're taking
microchipping, those kinds of things.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So that changes $14,990 of additional revenue that's come in, and we're just backfilling those operational budgets within animal control. Next is the aquatic center operation. We have a few different things related to weather. Weather's looking pretty good for us right now. We have a window for staff to get some projects done. We have a group that's going to be coming in and doing some crack seal on some of the parking areas. So this is a new item, but we'd like to spend $6,000 having a ball field and aquatic center asphalt crack sealed. When we bring the main budget for 2021 in, we'll probably do a seal coat and restriping. We'll request that, but we have an opportunity to get that done now. So that's a brand new item. Next section is in the airport, and it will tie down into the airport construction fund. And I'll try to simultaneously discuss those. So these are large dollars. We have grant shares with the FAA. Federally, they come in and determine projects that they want to federally fund for our airport. We have some very large items, specifically for rebuild of the runway. The big one's $19 million down in the airport construction fund. So within the airport operation itself, we have to transfer 5% grant match over to match the 95% federal funds we receive. You're also aware on this major project, our Public Works Department is going to do a lot of in-kind work rather than hopefully have to pay out cash, because that exceeds the capability of the airport's budget. So those are the changes within the airport and the airport construction fund. Why are we adjusting all those budgets now? The FAA generally comes on site and they kind of determine what they're going to do later in the spring. And we're on our fiscal year preparing a budget for July 1. We've recently got our grants kind of lined up, and we've just kind of reallocated those. One is also going to have some state participation from the Department of Transportation. They'll put in $700,000 for some work on the airport, and we have to match that with $77,000. Does that make enough sense? It's a lot of big numbers and a lot of projects. That's what's going on in the airport. We're going to bring a brand new item within the Parks and Recreation impact fees. We've done quite a bit of work at the lake, at the hills. So we are proposing $350,000 of Parks and Rec impact fees that we pave both parking areas at the lake. As you'll recall, we just put an asphalt walking track around the circumference of the lake and the parking area. We'll put in some curbing to separate the trail from the parking area and also to keep the runoff out of the lake itself. And we'll be doing that on both parking areas. So that'll match nicely with the walking trails we put in. We're also going to put in some shade structures in the picnic areas on the sandy beach area, if we want to call it that, but the gritty sandy area. We'll be putting those in. And then we've also had a lot of requests to put trees around the west side of the ball fields next to the road. So Wade will put in somewhere between 50 and 100 trees outside of those fences that will kind of shelter it from the road, hopefully keep some of those home run softballs out of the street as much as possible. So that's a brand new item. It's the first time we've brought it into you, and that'll be funded with recreation impact fees. So that's for consideration. Within the golf course fund, as we mentioned in the last few weeks, we're running a little bit over on our irrigation project. We're going to, from the golf course fund itself, add $130,000 to the irrigation project. It's from the golf course fund balance. That should get us through project completion of this phase of re-irrigating the front 9 of the golf course. And specifically, this was for the pond liner for the irrigation system. Okay. Another new item for council, which we've got a lot of public interest in, is we are requesting funding of $280,000 for recreation center design fees, architecture, engineering, to complete the recreation center. That'll be funded by the Capital Improvement Fund. The nature of what will take place will be discussed in the next item, but that will cover architecture, engineering, design, and rendering for the facility. And lastly, in the water fund, we've had several opportunities over the year to purchase some additional water rights. We look like we're going to be entering into a contract to acquire some. We're increasing the water acquisition capital item from $75,000 to $943,000, an $868,000 increase to purchase water rights. Those are all of the revision items I have for council. Does council have any questions for me?
My only question is on both the recreation and the water rights that we've in those enterprise funds and in the impact fees. Do we have those funds available, correct?
We do, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We will now open the public hearing. The public hearing is specifically geared towards just the items that were discussed on the budget revision. And so if there's anyone that would like to address the council, now is your chance. Make sure you state your name.
Oh, that's Tom. Hello, good evening. My name is Carrie Fain. I am the current president of Southern Utah Yeti, the local nonprofit group that I think truly has a voice in some of the budget hearing. I see a lot of dour faces up there, but I do want to start with, I very much appreciate the chances that we have been given and the work that has gone on with the council and the city staff and the amazing project that we've built together. From there, it was very shocking to receive the notice. I know there's an update coming up on the ice rink, though, on the 30-day to vacate. I'm not part of Staley Rec Association. I no longer run the ice rink, though I did for the first 5 years. But I am a voice for our youth and our organization of the youth. And I just ask, as a taxpayer and a constituent, that any large spending towards a MAC center, a rec center, soccer fields, a field house, and of course an ice rink be given fair and even shake all the way around. I ask that because there is still time to go ahead and honor the 1-year lease signed with Staley Rec Company and to approve and put on ballot these projects. Because I know that everybody seems to think, as a gathered mass, that it was voted on and approved and promised to build a MAX center along with the aquatic center, but that is not true. City records show it's not. It was not included in the original ballot initiative. And all of these projects are huge and weighing on the taxpayer. We will all see the effect of this, whether it's in bonding to build any of these, or if it's in the operations and maintenance in the future. It directly affects every one of us taxpayers and our future taxpayers. I have a son that just recently got married and will be looking to build in Cedar City this next year. It's going to affect my grandchildren. So I just would ask, please, I know it's a sore topic, but give it a chance. Put all of them on a ballot this year. Let the public truly vote for what they would like to see. I don't think that's asking too much. And I think it's a responsibility of our city council as voted in representatives of your community and your constituents to at least give us that. Give us a choice on what it is. And honestly, if it comes in that it's the MAX Center, if it's a giant splash pad that's put in there and is voted for, awesome, because my kids win. My kids use all of these facilities, as do many of these kids here. But we need at least a chance to see that. I know 10 years ago, everybody talked about this is the plan, this is where we need to move forward. Everybody wants a MAX Center. Things change. I thought I was going to grow up and be a Marine or the next president of the United States. And reality happens, life happens, and things change. Growth changes everything. And I just ask to please, one of you, please just be a hero to not only all of the youth that will be out and the community out on such a wonderful facility, but to your constituents, and make a motion, please, here in the future, the next meeting, to formally put all of these great options on a ballot for us to vote for and let the people speak about where the money should go. Thank you.
Sorry.
So- Hold on just a second, gentlemen.
I just have a quick clarifying question. So regarding the particular issue at hand, this budget issue, you're asking us to hold off on the $280,000 design allocation on engineering because you think we should hold off on that until we have another plan for amenities. Is that what you're asking here?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
A couple things really quick. We're going to do what we normally do. I should have set this at the beginning. We're going to set, I always set time limits on these. That way people can speak their piece, but everyone is respectful of each other's time. So we'll do 30 minutes worth of public comments on this. Another one is, I know that most of you are very passionate about ice and the ice rink. I can see that in all of your uniforms. And I know a lot of these faces from a lot of our meetings, and we appreciate you being here again tonight. But if you will please stick to, this is a public hearing on the budget revision. So please keep your comments specifically tied to this budget revision. I would appreciate that. And make sure you state your name as well. So, and we'll start now with our 30-minute time, since I didn't mention that at the beginning. And the floor is yours, gentlemen.
Thank you. My name is John Crozier, for the record. I'm part of a nonprofit organization down in St. George called Kids on Ice. We've been trying to raise money, build a rink down there, and I have an incredible contact with the Vegas Golden Knights. As a matter of fact, the president of the Vegas Golden Knights, I reached out to him today after I found out about the potential closing of this rink, and he wants the opportunity. And I'm asking you to seriously consider this, because I want you to know, give me just a minute to explain Henderson. He's willing to look at being a partner with you to put a permanent facility here in Cedar City. And so Dallin Staley and I are emailing him. He's extremely busy right now. They're in the middle of their season, or getting towards the end of the season. But he's willing to look at this, and they did this in Henderson, Nevada, where Henderson and the Vegas Golden Knights partnered. The city did a part and the Vegas Golden Knights did a part, and now they're putting a 2-sheet facility in that city. And in 10 years, the city takes over the building, and the Vegas Golden Knights just basically give it over to them. I'm not saying that's what will happen here, but you have an opportunity here. And that's why I'm asking for you to hold off until we have an opportunity to get a presentation made and we have an opportunity to speak with the Knights about what could take place. Thank you. Yes. Has their position changed? Because in conversations with Dallin, he has told me that that was not an option previously. Here is the theme to understand with the Vegas Golden Knights. They want local participation. They want local money involved before they'll participate. But we had that offer on the table. We were paying half of it. And the Staleys turned that down. And Dallin told me the Golden Knights was off the table. So we need to understand what has changed. The fact that you're closing the rink is what has changed.
Okay.
So
I guess I don't understand how that changes their participation.
they understood that you had an agreement working forward. Okay. And when I contacted Mr. Buboltz today on the phone and he learned of the closing of the rink, he wants an opportunity to review and see if they can participate at this point because they don't want to lose ice.
Okay. Maybe Dallin.
Mayor, could I just come back to a issue because I know we have the glacier report and update coming, and I know this is all going to be part of that. But this is not relevant to the budget revision.
And that was what I was going to say. These comments from now on have to be relevant to our budget revision.
We will get to all your comments under the glacier.
Or we can't.
And I apologize because I asked him a question.
You're
and
fine.
Can Dallin answer it? Or do
Dallin
you
can
want
answer
him
the question
to
right
wait?
now. And then from now on, it has to be relevant to our budget revision.
Dallin Staley. And the Knights have always been interested in what we're doing. We just never were we were never far enough along that we could prove that we had any funds in place or that we had any contract. So it was part of the funding plan to go to them once we had something in place, but it didn't come to be. So this could be something, could be nothing, but I think it would be worth giving everything else some time and see what shakes out.
So Dallin, when you said that you told us that you had contacted the Knights and everything that we had laid on the table before everything went south and you turned it down, that they are not interested in Cedar City. Those were your words because they were building these 2 other facilities in Las Vegas and they had, used all of their capital that they had available at the time and they would not have any more for several years.
Yeah.
And we took your word on that.
Yeah, we can talk about that during the ice rink thing. I don't want to take all.
Well, I'm just asking you because that was,
Well, yeah, so it's an update from Dallin. Well,
We'll have an update from Dallin on all of that, but this is just specifically related to our budget hearing. Yes.
Yes, my name's Heather Velasquez, and I would like to know, as a citizen, before any decisions are made, what was the intent of the money to be used to build? I have no idea what they were going to build in place of the rink. Can somebody clarify as to what the intent was to replace it with?
For this?
Yes, because you're budgeting to have it a plan. You're budgeting money that was going to go towards redesigning what was going to replace it, correct?
We're budgeting $280,000 to hire an architect to do the design work for the multi-purpose recreational facility.
So when you say multi-purpose, what does that include?
Well, once we have the design work done, we'll have a better picture and we'll release some renderings of what it includes. But preliminarily, it's a large area. It's 2 stories tall. On the bottom story, there's multi-use courts that can be
So you're
converted.
talking basketball?
No.
Volleyball?
Sure. Basketball, volleyball, soccer, indoor hockey, anything you want to do
Dodgeball.
in these large courts. Dodgeball, pickleball. Ken even said we could do badminton, but I don't know if there's a big badminton market out there. anything you can do in these large courts. The upstairs is an enclosed walking track, exercise equipment, and that was about it, wasn't it? That's the preliminary design.
Okay, then my next question is, the access to this facility would also require a fee, just like the aquatic center, correct?
Sure.
Okay, so then aren't there facilities already in town that allow those types of things? Aren't there at parks, basketball courts, soccer fields, volleyball, indoor track? Are there locations for those things already available?
There are some, yes.
The only difference is they're outdoor instead of indoor.
Well, I think, yes, that's true, but I think also there's not enough of them. There's not adequate amounts. And it is always, just let me finish, please.
Will the audience please be, if we're being respectful, and everybody needs to be respectful of each other. That is one of the rules that will happen in this council chambers today. Everybody will be respectful of one another. There are children here, and as adults, we need to demonstrate that.
It was always the intent in the aquatic center discussions to eventually build some kind of a multi-activity center on that building where currently is the ice rink is located. That's always been the intent. Now, it was taken off the ballot because at the time it was discussed with the city fathers and whoever at that time that they didn't want to have it included in that because it didn't seem viable because of the costs. But even when we discussed the funding and the pledge towards the ice rink, part of that proposal was that both of these projects should proceed ahead. We wanted both of them to happen, including the multi-activity center.
So back then, the intent was to have both an ice rink and a multi-use facility.
May I?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
So now the whole story starts way before July of 2008, but that's where I'll start.
Prior to me living here. So that's why I'm asking for the follow-up.
Sure.
We'll give you all a nice big picture of the history, so hopefully this will give you some information.
Okay.
So there was some study done before this time, and there was knowledge in the community that the existing swimming pool is going away. It was located over on SUU's property. Currently, there's some pickleball courts and a parking lot where that swimming pool used to be, maybe a grass field. Everybody knew that the university was moving ahead with their rec building, and that pool had a lifespan, and it was about to end. In July of 2008, the council was presented with two resolutions related to a general obligation bond proposal for the ballot that coming November. Option number one was a $17 million bond to build both the Aquatic Center and the Mac Center. When they use the Mac Center, for purposes of today's discussions, it's used interchangeably with the Rec Center. It's the same basic thing. Mac means multi-activity center.
Okay.
Rec Center is Rec Center, right? Those terms are used interchangeably. The other bond option on the council's agenda that night was a resolution to approve a $7 million bond just to build the Aquatic Center portion. So the council considered it. They had meetings in July. They had a lot of discussion about the need for the Mac Center, the need for the Aquatic Center. They had a lot of discussions from public, similar to the public that's here tonight, that was just as passionate about the Mac Center as most of these folks are about the ice rink. They had a long discussion. They came back they came back in September, continued those discussions, and they ended up voting on the $7 million package instead of the $17 million package. Mm-hmm. In the $7 million package, that back space where the ice rink is today was carved out for the future expansion of the Mac Center. So move forward a couple years. In 2011, the Aquatic Center opens. Shortly after that, we were approached by the fellows with the hockey rink, and they said, we want to move off the farm. We want to move to a different location. So we entered a series of contracts, and each of these contracts, whether they're with Yeti or Staley Rec Management, have two provisions in them. One says this is a seasonal temporary location for the ice rink. The other provision in every single one of these contracts says that that place where the ice rink was going to locate had been previously designated by the city for the expansion of the rec center for use for whatever programming the city was going to put in there. Everybody was on notice from the beginning of when we started these temporary agreements that that space was going to be developed as the rec center. Going back prior to 2008, that's been the city's plan. If you now move forward, we voted, I'm sorry, I didn't vote. The city voted sometime last year to, at the request of the Staley Rec Management, they petitioned the city to say the ice rink can stay in that back corner. And the city voted no. The ice rink has to move. That's where the rec center's going. That's when we offered a contract with Staley Rec Management, where the city would put up a parcel of land on the corner. You can see it on the map there. It's the undeveloped parcel on the corner. We would give them $1 a year lease.
Talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'd give them $1 a year lease for 20 years. We'd put up $1.5 million to start with, and approximately 65, 67, somewhere in that ballpark, annual payments for 20 years. They could use that to whatever need they had, whether it's to offset bond payments or operational monies or whatever they wanted. So the total package that we put forward was $2.85 million. We offered them a contract. In January, they came back and said, we're done. We're going to leave when the city wants us to leave. And we don't want the contract. So the city is now proceeding to do what we've told the public and the folks that run the ice rink, what we were going to do all along. We're proceeding to move forward with the rec center.
Okay.
And this money is to get the renderings and designs and architectural information to see what would be feasible. I mean, it was always thought to go back there. That's why there's an elevator. That's why, I mean, it was literally set up to go back there, but to get the renderings and get the information. So that's what the cost would be. And it's the next
So it
item
would
on
be
the
an annexed building to the aquatic center in a sense?
The rec center would be built into the aquatic center. We would use the
So you
same
go
elevators.
inside the aquatic center to get to the rec
Yep,
center.
we would use the same elevators, the same locker rooms, same bathrooms, same everything to get to the rec center.
part of why the layout of the aquatic center where the locker rooms are and everything is a little strange for what would be just typically a pool was because of this original thought of having that building. And the
Gotcha.
next item on the agenda would be, and that's part of why this is kind of strange. The next item on the agenda is the contract talking about this exact item. An
Gotcha.
architect, and it would be the same architect that designed the original building, so it would all fit together. So does
Okay.
that help answer
Yes.
some of your?
Yes.
I want you to. I truly want people to be educated and understand what's
Well,
going
I
on.
appreciate what Scott Phillips said about that the intent was to do both, because I think that would pacify many people.
And that was the intent, and that is why we had put up, and truly the city has, and Staley's, and I mean a lot of the group in here has spent hundreds of hours working towards the agreement, and we thought we were proceeding forward on a path to do both. It wasn't the intent with the city once we voted to not have the ice rink in that back corner anymore, and there was a contract and this money offered and everything else there. We thought we were moving towards that path until we got the letter from the Staleys in January. And that's when that idea kind of shriveled from what the city was planning to still moving forward with this. And so
Okay. Appreciate it.
there you go.
Mayor, Council, thank you very much. One clarifying question.
Name.
Oh, sorry, Adam Ellington.
I'm so proud that everyone else is getting in on this name thing too. Thank you.
Are we just asking questions? Or are we allowed to offer opinion as well right now?
Does it specifically relate?
Specifically to
budget.
this
The
topic.
budget.
If it
Absolutely,
relates to the budget,
yes.
then that's fine.
Absolutely. I have worked at 2 gyms in this town. I'm well aware of the fitness facilities available in this town, and I would very strongly express my opinion that spending a single dime on more fitness facilities seems like a massive waste to me. I just want to express that opinion.
Okay, thank you. Okay. There any other comments related to the budget? No? Yes? No? I'm having a hard, because I can't see anyone out in the hall, so I want to make sure I don't miss someone. Okay,
I know I'm probably the last person you guys want to.
but you still have to say your name.
Dallin Staley. So, anyway, I do have some concerns specifically towards the budget revision and just the whole process that's going on. I feel like it's being extremely rushed, and I feel like that, to me, it seems fairly suspect. And I've had more than one person contact me with concerns about how the process has gone, and I'm sure it doesn't make me any friends, but I just feel like this has been very rushed. I don't think that it's been very open, that us as a tenant weren't even notified until the afternoon of the day before this was all going down. I've been told that that decisions were made on this. The decision to move forward and to have us leave was done at a special meeting, not held in Cedar City. I've heard that mentions of a referendum were discussed in that meeting, and a need to urgently push this forward to beat the citizens' ability to have a voice and a say. So, I mean, those are my concerns. Those are things I'm hearing. And I think it's very concerning. And I think you look out here, I think it's concerning to a lot of people. And really all the people of this town are asking for is a voice to be heard. And it seems like it's not happening. So
So just to clarify, are you trying to retract the letter that you delivered to us last month?
absolutely not.
Because in that meeting, you stated you were calling it quits and you were not moving forward. So
The glacier is not moving forward with anything, but in no way is the glacier gonna express in any way that it doesn't believe in the ice rink and doesn't believe that Cedar City should have an ice rink. And we can discuss the ice rink part of this more later.
Yeah.
But I am very concerned, and I guarantee you many constituents are very concerned with an expedited process that appears to be cutting the knees out of the ability of the citizens to have a voice in a matter that is very important to this town. So I'm sorry. I know I've made mistakes in this whole thing.
Didn't we offer to put it on the ballot last summer and you guys said, don't put it on the ballot?
That could have been a mistake on our part.
I
but
personally asked to put it on the ballot last fall, and you guys refused and said you did not want it on the ballot.
that could be a gotcha moment, but
Can I ask,
it doesn't change the fact that it still might, maybe you were right then. Do you still believe you were right?
can I ask another question? So we already have established in a number of meetings that no matter what, the back corner wasn't going to be the home of the permanent home of the ice rink. Like the council voted on that. And
That's fine, but who does the council represent?
the council there are 30,000 constituents in this town, and we've heard from people on both sides of the issue.
Sure you have.
And so that decision was made that wasn't, which is why this whole new plan of putting it on this other property was discussed, renderings were drawn up. So I'm confused a little bit as to why when and this goes to the actual budget item, why when the council's doing exactly what they said they were going to do of continuing with this project, because the whole goal was to try to do both till we got the letter in January.
So why
is it any different that they're actually moving forward with what they said they were doing?
Well, for one, you cut the lease short after only approving it 4 months ago. And it seems like a very expedited process to me. There was no plan to do this. You could have let us stay, but it seems like word got out that the citizens may be trying to let their voice be heard. And I'm sorry. Sorry. I have to say it. I don't think it's right. If that was ever mentioned in a meeting, that anything should be expedited because the citizens are trying to let their voice be heard, what is wrong with the citizen? That gets all of you.
There are minutes to that meeting, so I would suggest you
And
go.
the initiative is mentioned in those minutes. I've read them.
Okay, and we said that we should expedite it, not give our citizens a say.
They're they're not extremely detailed minutes. I assume there's a recording, right? So a recording may be good. I could be making some assumptions, but I'm just saying from multiple sources I have heard that this was mentioned and that it was concerning. So there was a lot of people there. Everyone in Cedar City talks. We're all friends. And so
I'm sorry. So that's concerning to me. I haven't seen those minutes. I don't think I might have missed them. Have we sent those out?
They're draft.
Oh, okay. I haven't had a chance to review them. I'd like to review that.
Okay.
but I mean, it took us months and months and months we never got to the point of construction plans. So it seems like a very rushed thing. So my direct thing to the matter at hand is I think it would serve you guys well. I think it would serve the community well. There's been so much that's divided this community this last year. Why are we doing stuff, even if it's not true? Okay. Even if it's not true, it doesn't look good. Why are we doing it? And it's in direct conflict with something that's so good for the community. Why are we doing it? Anyway, thank you.
Nathan Breinholt.
Thank you.
I have a question. The $280,000, is that to start the design for the MAC Center for this fall?
So that would be, this is the next item on the agenda. We'll go over it to answer your question. That would be to hire Mark Wilson Architects. He would do all of the design, starting from the design documents all the way through the construction of the building. It would include all the engineering, electrical, plumbing, all that stuff.
To start the design of it.
He would have the design completed by the middle of this summer. The intent is to break ground end of summer, early fall.
Okay,
And
so
move
you're
forward
planning
with
to break ground and start construction. Okay.
break ground and start construction of the rec center late summer, early fall.
Okay, so that 280,000 is starting the actual building of it.
That's what part of that would be the contract with Mr. Wilson. Once Mr. Wilson gets into the design of the building, at some point he will provide us an estimated construction cost.
Okay.
At that point, we'll know an estimated construction cost.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll have more questions after the budget one.
A point of order. I don't know what procedure, but I wonder if the audience would maybe be amenable to us moving on to the other items on the agenda and having a public hearing at the end where.
Well, we are required we have to
Okay.
have a public hearing
Right.
on the budget.
Right.
So I need to
Okay.
finish the budget public hearing and I'll allow public comments when we get to that one, but I
Okay.
have to have a public hearing on the budget. That's why I'm trying to keep this very narrowly tailored to focusing just on the budget. Are there any other comments specifically? Okay, yes, the ones in the hall. Can our little kids just make a little bit of a pathway? I love that you're here, but if you can make a little pathway so the ones in the hall can get in, that would be great.
Hi, my name is Mike Golden, and my comment is very similar to Dallin's in terms of the budget. I have concerns about delegating the money and the reasons it's being delegated so quickly. I have seen draft notes from your retreat that indicate that Councilman Adams asked for these plans to be put into place so that before the ice rink could want to come back to that area, is what the notes indicate. And then on the next page, it indicates, can we do this essentially as quickly as possible, because there's rumors of a ballot initiative. And that to me is very concerning as a citizen and a voter.
Good evening. My name is Mike McCoy. I am familiar with a little bit of the history. Just for the sake of this meeting, let's pretend that there isn't an ice rink or there isn't a conflict with that. I would just like to know how it's justified that you can add on to a building and spend more money on a building that is already in the hole $440,000 for last year. If I were to do that with my business, or any of us here were to do that with our businesses or our homes, it would simply make no sense. I would just like to hear from anyone, whether it's staff or council, how you can justify adding on to something that is in the red by hundreds of thousands of dollars historically. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I would like to let you know, I had prepared a comment, but I'll hold off till later because it's relevant to the other items as well. But I do appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Well, I'll try to answer that. Does that gentleman want to come back up? Can you hear me all right?
If you want to come back up, we can.
I mean, we can discuss this.
This is very relevant to the budget part, so I'm good with this conversation.
Okay.
So that's really subjective to the individual. The same line of thinking of why it's appropriate to subsidize recreation is the same question. Why is it appropriate for the city to put funding towards the ice skate project, park projects, trails, ball fields? We just come together as citizens and we know that we're going to want those quality of life amenities, and they don't make money. That's the reason governments do it, whether it's basketball courts or tennis courts, walking trails. So it's just subjective to the individual, the justification, but none of our recreation amenities we run are profitable, none. So, and neither will the ice rink be if the city constructs and operates it. It will also not be profitable. So it's just some information for you. So it's really just an elected body's right to determine if that's an appropriate use of taxpayer money.
Thanks.
Adam Ellington, am I allowed a second comment? So that right there, Mr. Norris, thank you very much. That's exactly why I strongly oppose this, is because that is offered in so many different ways throughout this community, with every church, every school having courts, the university having courts, 7 private funded gyms. I strongly believe that there is more than enough available resources in that arena for this community. That's why I strongly oppose spending the budget on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric Heaton, and I just had a comment. I know, in a question that was asked to Dallin about, did you want a proposal or a referendum? And he said no, but I think he, in his defense, may have been operating on the assumption that it would all work out. And there was a lot of things that had to happen for that to work out. There had to be an operating agreement that was reached between the city and them that it would work for both the city and them, and other factors that may not have worked or obviously didn't work out. And so to blame them, to say, hey,
You have to tie it back to the budget.
okay. And so,
sorry.
Yeah, that's a good point. But so I guess my question is, if we're ready to move forward and pay this money for the budget, shouldn't we get a fair reset of maybe let's look at this and see what the citizens want. Is that gonna be the best use of the money to go ahead and go and pay for this these plans, and maybe sit back, pause, and decide if that's what's the best for the city? And I don't know what the answer is in terms of what the city wants, but I think we probably should sit back and say, hey, maybe let's wait before we move forward with plans and expenses that maybe may make the situation worse. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have hit 30 minutes, so we'll allow you two to do, you're both up, you're standing up, so you can both do your comments, and then we will.
Hello, my name is Anders Henningsen, and my concern, or question rather, about this budget is this is a plan proposed in 2008, correct? For the recreational center and all that, and the money that we're putting into designing this? This is started in 2008.
There. It's been constantly discussed since then.
Yeah, we've been working diligently on this for like a year and a half plus. So it's not rushed. Yeah, on this gym and the ice rink, bringing them both to fruition. We've been working for the almost 2 years that we've been working diligently on bringing this. So I guess I don't feel like it's very rushed.
Concept started back then, but it's been continued to be worked on even up until right now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all.
I'll be quick. My name is Randy Seeley. My son has played hockey since he was in kindergarten, and there's other planning that obviously has been taken place. I just kind of want to be a neutral voice on just from what I've heard and what was already been planned. I think there's benefit to the rec center. I'm going back to what Scott Phillips said about plans for both. If we can be more understanding and hear out what you already have planned, and that there's a community interest overall as a whole for the entire city for the rec center. But as the years have gone on, there's obviously been a growing interest in hockey. If there can be a middle ground that our city can come to an agreement is, this is what is established, this is what is here. Can there be a temporary solution for ice hockey so that we can go through with the rec center? But then I'm trying not to go to the next docket. I'm trying to keep it with the budget. We understand the budget, the investment. I know that you guys spend so much time. I know some of you on the council. I know you're good people. I know you try to have the best interest in the city at heart. But also we have kids that love this sport. And so just want to say that. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We will, I would say, there's any other very specific direct questions, and if it's towards any of the other budget items. Okay, we will close the public hearing on our budget revision, and that will go on the action agenda where it's a resolution for next week. So for all the public and for our little ones that are here, because I want you to know that none of this will be voted on tonight. None of the decisions related to funding, none of it is decided tonight. It has to be voted on in a roll call vote next week. Okay, item number 9, consider contract with Mark Wilson Architect.
Okay, so Mark's here and he can fill in whatever blanks I missed, please. So staff has met with Mark and regarding the design and the construction of the multi-purpose recreational facility and the child care area additions to the existing aquatic center. Mr. Wilson was the architect that originally designed the building. Mr. Wilson has provided a draft contract to Tyler for his review. After I wrote this, I found out that him and Tyler have been back and forth on that agreement a couple times. They've ironed out whatever differences they have, and they're on the same page. Key terms of the agreement with Mr. Wilson are as follows. He'll have weekly meetings with staff during the design. We'll have progress drawings required for discussion and approval. He'll do the architectural and the construction documents, civil engineering, design and construction documents, structural engineering, design and construction documents, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, engineering, design and construction documents, all drawings required by Cedar City Corporation prior to approval of building permits. He'll go with us through the bidding process, the award of bids, the general services for the contractor. He'll go with us all the way through construction administration and completion of the building. The cost to Cedar City for Mr. Wilson's services and all of these other services that I've outlined is $255,164. There's a retainer due up front when we sign the contract. The target date to have all of the design work done is July 31st, 2020.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, that's thorough.
Are there questions from the council related to that? Would you like this on the, yes? Tyler?
My only concern with it is I just want to make sure that the city's not overspending when it comes to this issue, independent of the other considerations we're hearing tonight. But if we were to go forward, where this same firm had done the work 12 years ago or so, I'm just curious if I'm not a professional in the field. Is that a pretty reasonable estimate, or is that maybe a little inflated, considering that they've already did a lot of the work?
From what I've seen, it's not unreasonable. What did we spend?
You can even come, you can address that too if you want, Mark.
160 on the.
And I don't want to throw them under the bus, obviously. I just want to look out for the taxpayer.
If it makes you feel any better, I asked the exact same question.
Go ahead, Mark.
Okay.
You don't need to feel bad at
Okay,
all. 'Cause
good,
I've asked
good.
the exact
I believe,
same question.
I mean, in working
It's in
with,
line with what we paid on architectural services at the animal shelter. It's
Okay.
in line. I'm not going to say to the exact penny, but it's in line with what we see on architectural
And
services.
it's not like it's a law firm that we're paying, so I'm a little less skeptical, but I'm just teasing
want-
fellow lawyers.
He's not going to charge by that.
Mark Wilson, architect. Thank you for the opportunity to clarify a couple of things. Architectural fees are not just architects. Obviously, we hire consulting engineers and we administrate the contract all the way through. We meet with contractors during the course of the project and do inspections of the work and those sorts of things. So there's much work to be done, and not just by my firm, but by all of the engineering firms involved. There's a shop drawing process that takes place during the construction phase where we have to review all of the submittals of all of the materials and how they're constructed throughout the course. So to the layman, it may look like it's extravagant, but it's a lot of people's hours over a long period of time. And the fees that you are seeing with this contract are well in line. In fact, they're just a little below what we have done as a preliminary estimate of about 5% of the cost of construction, and that is well within industry standards. In fact, it's a little lower than most.
I appreciate that. Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank
Mark, don't go away. I have a question for you.
you. Oh, okay.
I want to know on the proposed timeline, I want to know how realistic that is. I want to make sure that what I expressed to city manager and some folks earlier on was I want to make sure we don't get into fall and all of a sudden there's some sort of snags, whatever they might be, and then we're led to November and we can't start construction and all of a sudden we're in the middle of the winter, So I'm just trying to find out how realistic this timeline is.
It's realistic as long as there's cooperation with the owner. That is you folks. And in order to do this, we would have to get moving and have weekly meetings and get our approvals as quickly as possible from the city through the phases of design, which would include first schematic design and renderings and a complete budget estimate. and from there forward, continue on a very aggressive format so we would have weekly meetings, making sure that we're meeting targets and making sure we keep on track in order to get there. So up front is the time to save that time once we get stuck into the design process. It goes at a certain pace and everyone works together to coordinate their drawings. And so the coordination process is important in this early stage of design and throughout the construction documents phase. And so we will work towards that. And I see no reason why we can't make that date. That's very reasonable.
When do you anticipate we'd see our first cost estimates?
The schematic design phase will begin immediately upon approval of the funds, and we would get going on that. And I would imagine it's going to take a couple, maybe 3 meetings with all of the design team, which will include members of staff and whoever else the owner wants to designate as part of their design team. And we will meet together and iron out all of the preliminary design matters and be producing drawings at the same time. I'm estimating that will take about 3 weeks.
Okay.
Are there any additional comments, questions from council? This will go on action as it relates to the above item. Okay, item number 10, consider resolution adopting the city's amended strategic plan.
So on February 10th, where the council held that retreat, the purpose of that retreat was to discuss our visions and goals and try to gain some common ground on where the council would like to see the city moving forward. As part of that discussion, we discussed the city's strategic plan that was originally adopted on August 26th of 2015. So I've gone through based on our discussion and I added and changed a few things. So I don't know if, I assume you've had a chance to look through that. Just a couple things. The council, it was important to the council that one of our values was civility and how we interact with each other. We wanted to fine tune our strategic goals in keeping and recruiting businesses into the city and promoting high-paying jobs. We talked a little bit and changed some of the language about our goals for improving public infrastructure. We added ADA accessible language to make sure it promoted and also promoted active transportation. Other than that, one other thing I think of note would be under fostering community engagements. We added language that promotes opportunities for neighbors to serve each other in an effort to maintain personal property and create and maintain positive relationships. There are other minor changes that I made. Any questions on any of those? Did I get those accurately put down?
I appreciated that, and I personally felt like it reflected some of those changes we had discussed. And I had mentioned in that meeting, and I would like to, mention here as well as we move forward with this. I'll personally do my best to make a concerted effort in reviewing this plan with any of our proposals that come forward. Because I feel that when we don't do that, then the plan becomes irrelevant. And I think it's important to keep the plan and stick to the plan unless we notice something may be missing or outdated. And I appreciate my fellow council members in making that effort as well.
I also would like to ask that that once we get it formalized, that this becomes available and is open to all the public so they can see what that is and what our strategic goals and plans are, so they know how that feeds back to the decisions we're making here in council chambers.
I assume that we'll do what we did before. It will go on website. We'll probably post it on social media, and then it's hanging in our different buildings as well.
Yeah.
Printed copies. And
Can we have it available next week to be
Yeah, we can
projected
have
up on
it.
be projected up on the screen?
Oh,
to the public?
absolutely.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea.
Absolutely. So that we can,
Thank you. No, I think you captured what we discussed and the changes that we provided. So I think that's good.
as we had mentioned in our others, this will also be part of as we prepare for our budget for this upcoming year. Now that this would give us a direction forward, that we had so much community involvement and time put into the first go around. We're trying to update it with times. It will be part of the budget so that when our departments come, they have a direction too, as far as where we're going as a city. So, all right, this will also go on our action agenda as it is a resolution. And now we are to item number 11, the glacier season report with Dallin. Please, okay, I was like, I know he is somewhere. I don't know if he's in the hall or.
Here, I'll give you a little flash drive here, kid.
Is it a slideshow or is it a video?
It's a video.
Okay. This is including the street.
Well, I guess there is a slideshow part of it too. But a few
I just don't know if those are plugged in, so you might have to tell Kit to advance the slides for you.
There's only a couple.
If it were business, that's strength. Businesses and.
Should be Kingston over there on the left. Far left there, Kit.
The other left.
Third one from the bottom.
Over.
Far left on third one
Over.
from the bottom.
There it is.
Right there. And that one, yep.
I'm going to make you say your name again, though, as you know.
I can do that. Yeah, Kit could download it off there too. It's probably too big to email, so it'd be easier to just pull it off. Dallin Staley. Okay, go ahead there, Kit. So I'm just going to run through the numbers real fast. So hopefully you're interested in this, but so we've been operating the Great Glacier for 3 years now. We've got 3 years history. And so these are the last 3 years numbers. This year we had 14,504 public skate passes that we sold, down just slightly from last year, but you'll probably see why that was in the upcoming slides. So go ahead, Kit. So part of the reason why just the individual passes probably was down is that season passes were up a lot. That's something that's picked up every year. People are kind of getting the hang of that, figuring out it's a pretty good deal. And we had quite a few people that you knew by name, right? That you threw out about every day for speed skating and crashing into people. So, so there was a lot of regulars this year. Go ahead, Kit. Learn to Skate had the biggest increase from any of our programs. This is usually for any rink. It's kind of the building block of everything that you do. So it was up, somewhere between 250 and 300% from last year. So 39% to 112. And this is where I probably need to just give a shout out to these ladies. Anyway, I hope you realize how talented people we have in this town. These guys did a great job, and something that's never happened in Cedar City really blossomed this year, and that's figure skating. And we got to give Krista a big hand for kind of taking that on. Krista's an amazing figure skating coach, and I'm pretty disappointed that you guys didn't make it to the ice show. But Krista choreographed how many dances in 1 week? 6 dances in 1 week. Choreographed them, learned them, and performed them. It's awesome.
I saw some pretty good little ballerinas out there during the public skate when I was out there watching. Some backwards and some arabesques and some jumps. Pretty good.
So youth hockey grew a lot again this year too, from 79 to 111. And we got to contribute that to better organization, good coaching, and kids that have had a good experience that are bringing their friends into that now. And I got to just give a shout out to Chad and his example as a coach. This guy knows hockey like no other, and it's awesome. And all the other coaches that are here, these guys are awesome. Oh, yeah. Good job, guys. So adult hockey, that's fun. That's kind of just a good time. No coaches, no one to give a shout out to, except for referees, I guess. Is Zach here today? Zach refed probably 200 games this year.
Probably a shout out to all those adults that dare do it.
So Zach's a trooper. We have others that ref, but Zach was a staple for the adult league. So we got almost to 150. We had 10 teams. So pretty good stuff. So private rentals is another one. This is something that, as an ice rink here in Cedar City, we're blessed to have people that love to use the ice rink. And a lot of it is during the day when most ice rinks sit vacant. We've got sometimes 200-300 people that are there in a group renting the rink for a few hours at a time. So average is probably 60 people, but it's anywhere from 30 to 250, 300 people that'll attend a private rental. And a lot of church groups do that. They're learning how to work the system, because now 2 or 3 wards are teaming up on a private rental, and they're showing up with 400 people to crowd the ice. But it's good. That's what it's there for, and we love having them there. So out of town teams coming here isn't something we're able to do a ton, but we did have 4 weekends that we had high school teams here. We had how many weekends that we had other youth teams here? 3 or 4 other weekends that youth teams were here. We've got a lot of other teams that really want to come, but we just don't really have the facilities that certain clubs require. So this was Martin Luther King weekend. We had a whole bunch of kids up here from Vegas, so pretty cool. And then this will be just a short video, and you'll get to see some of the things we did this year. Go ahead, just click and it should play, I think. This is not about me. I don't give a crap about being a manager of an ice rink. I don't need 1 red cent from an ice rink. You guys can have an ice rink, but we need one. You have no idea how much heart goes into this. Come on. 12 years ago, you said so many people showed up. It's because they were losing their pool. Right now, we're losing our ice rink. That's why we're here. I know I've made mistakes. I apologize. I will fade into the distance. I'll stay away from the ice rink forever. I might grow a beard and come back, go in disguise and sneak in. This isn't for me. I'm just asking for all of these people, not for me, for all of these people. Why can't we just slow down and find a way to make both work? We're not asking for one to go away either. We don't want other people crying because they can't play basketball or volleyball
Or badminton.
or badminton. I know I try too hard. I know I push too hard. I know I'm a pain in the butt. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be a pain in the butt. I just want something good for this town. We've proven this for 7 years. This is amazing. This is something no other town in southern Utah has. People flock here for this. People are jealous of what we have. Why? Why would you even consider? Anyway.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
There is a lot of passion. So instead of, how do I phrase this? So when the letter came to us, I will speak for just myself. Mind you, I was not here the day we had our contract negotiation, really long council meetings, and I was having a baby, and so I am taking 100% credit for not being here because I was having my baby at the hospital. It kept me away. So yes, I was not here. No, I do not feel bad for not being here that week. And yes, I logged on for like 2 minutes, and then I looked over and realized that was the dumbest thing because I had a brand new baby next. Dallin, we have wanted to work with you I've been on here this is my 7th year. We've been working together for, that amount of time. Why, when there was a problem, instead of coming and talking to us, we have not always seen eye to eye. For years, we have not always seen eye to eye, but we have found a way to make things work. We have negotiated. We have done contract negotiations. We have found ways to work. Yeah. You guys haven't always been happy. The city hasn't always been happy, but we've always walked away knowing that at the end of the day, we were continuing forward, and you didn't get everything you wanted. We didn't get everything we wanted. Probably was a pretty decent deal. Why then did you come to us without speaking to any one of us, without contacting me, without contacting any of us, and brought in that letter that said that you guys were done and walking away. And I mean, I have it right here. I was literally shocked that day because I thought we were at least moving forward. When I got back, I said, where's our contract to sign? Because I took a little break of enjoying my baby before I was full getting back in the thing. And so I flat out asked, where's the contract? I know it was negotiated. I know we did all this. So why didn't we sit down and talk again? If there were these problems, for 7 years, there has never been a problem too big that we haven't been able to work out. And to me, there never will be a problem that is so big that people cannot, in this community, in Cedar City of all places, where we are friends and we are neighbors, we can sit down across the table and talk. So how did we get a letter that was saying that we were done without even the courtesy of us being able to sit down and talk again?
Look, we talked a lot before that contract came before the council. The council knew that we couldn't accept the contract, and the council still approved it. We felt like our relationship had been very stressed, and so we asked representatives of ours to reach out to some council members that we felt could possibly still be on the fence on certain things, and didn't really receive a hopeful indication that things were going to change. But really, I am going to take the full brunt in front of everyone, but I think we let the negotiations get away from us. I am not an experienced negotiator. We let the whole discussion get too far down a road that we probably shouldn't have let it get down, and it was too far gone, and we felt like it was just something we couldn't do. And you guys can look at me, you could look at the Staleys and think that there's a lot of resources there, that this maybe wasn't as big of a risk as it was for us, but I'm telling you, it was a big risk. And the little bit further that it went, adding the additional risk and then certain things in the contract, I want it so bad. You have no idea. We all want it so bad, but we have families to feed. We have other families who have families to feed that depend on us. And as much as we love the ice rink, as hard as it is, we're going to live without the ice rink. But it's a lot worse to have families losing jobs or things like that. And I'm telling you right now, we didn't have the resources at the point where the contract got to feel comfortable backing that contract. I am confident that we could have raised the half of the funds that we were trying to do, but we had to put another over $1 million that we would have been guaranteeing based on a contract that was pretty difficult. So I don't think we need to rehash the past. It's not coming back.
Can I say something? This is, for everything. We all have made mistakes. One thing that I will say, as far as all of this goes, face-to-face communication is 100% more effective than slamming each other on social media. That is the one thing that has come out of this whole ice rink that I think is the saddest thing in this community, is the tearing each other down that has occurred on social media. We are better than that. Each of us is better than what has occurred on Facebook, than what has occurred on any other social media platform. And I am disappointed in each and every one of us that has used that forum as a way to try to belittle and discredit. And this has been a phenomenal asset to the city. It has put a lot of work in by you personally, by your family, by all of the volunteers that are here. And truly, I'm done with the belittling each other on social media. It's not helping and it's not achieving any purpose for either side. And we don't have sides, we have a community. I don't think, and I wish that we could have rewinded some time and gone back and had the conversation of, we can't make it work with that amount of money. Are there other options? Because one thing that this group right here and this group to this side are, let's try to figure out, and we have said this time and time again, let's try to figure out how to make things work. There is legal protections built in, and that sometimes seems like a roadblock. And yes, there is government and there are legal protections, and there has to be that for everything else. But I feel like we all kind of got a little carried away in the us versus them, not how to work together towards a common denominator, which would be the youth and the little kids you saw in that video.
I think we could all agree to that. So, yeah, I think we could all agree. We've tried to portray a positive message. I know that everything isn't always positive, and there's a lot of other people out there too. But I guess at this point, like you said, we're trying to do what's best for the community, and our message really, and we'll say it over and over again. And I don't think this is demeaning to anyone or calling anyone out. But our message is really, if the city's going to be investing in recreation, this is the one thing in our community that is at risk 100%. And you have to acknowledge that's why the pool had such passion behind it, is because there was one pool and it was going to be gone 100%. And we just feel like there needs to be some consideration for what is the impact of a decision and what is the potential benefit of a decision. And we're not asking to forget other priorities. We're just asking that if we need to move out of that spot, we would really love to know that we have another spot to go to before we have to leave. Yeah. And if we have to compete and only one thing can get done, then we would ask that we take an objective look and see what is the impact of an additional 3 gymnasiums with what currently exists, and how that would change the dynamic in the city, and what is the impact of an ice rink, and what is the impact if either one didn't get done, and that we let all things go that are in the past, and that we look at the opportunities that are in front of us here and now, and the impact that is going to occur going into the future if these things happen. And I don't want to hate anyone. I don't want anyone to hate me. I mean, we all know each other to some degree, and I think at times there's been some love and respect lost, but I would love to have that back. And if I can't, I'm happy to fade away. If that's a hindrance to this thing, I am happy to fade away. But even if I do, I will lend every effort that I can give. Anything that I've learned, I will offer that to you guys. I mean, I'm not a genius, but I've learned some things and we've been successful. So
No.
I don't know. I don't have a whole lot else to say.
I will, and then the council can talk all they want. So we have had the conversation before in this meeting, in a public meeting, that when you just barely said, we wish we would have had another spot. We have a first right of refusal on another spot. We've worked towards another location. I mean, I feel like
Okay, I guess I should.
As a body, we have worked to give you exactly that request.
I should clarify then. So the Glacier, Staley West, Staley family does not have money to build an ice rink. I assume that we could make as generous of a donation as we could do to the city for the city to build an ice rink. That's what we would ask at this point, is that this become a city project owned by the city. The city can choose how to operate it. It could operate it itself. It could subcontract it out to any entity it wanted. It's the city's. It does what it wants with it. It receives same standing as everything else, and they all are weighed based on what we know right now, not what happened in the past. The past is the past, I guess. And what is the need right now? What is the potential benefit? What is the risk? So I guess to clarify, that's what we're asking. So we're not asking for a piece of dirt. We're asking that this just become part of what the city wants, which in a lot of ways alleviates a lot of concerns that I think maybe some of you have had and others in the community, that there was some ulterior motive to what we were trying to do. So there is no ulterior motive, I promise you.
For me, and you might have addressed part of it in your last statement, I was always intrigued by this idea, and I've had a lot of conversations with you about it, so you know where I stand on the ice rink, and it's important to our community. I'm the one that made the motion that night for $2.85 million. But I was very disappointed, and I explained to you in January that I was afraid if we went down this road, we might be closing the door to something we couldn't reopen. And you may recall I said that night. I still want both these to happen. So my question for you, we plan, well, I mean, I don't want to speak for my other council members. We're going to try and move ahead with the MAC Activity Center in its previous location. Whether that design happens now, whether the design happens in 6 months, we have decided that's where it's going to be built. And we all knew that. You were in the meetings when we decided it, and we made that vote that night. That's why we picked the other location for the ice rink. So my question is, if we are going to move forward, and if we try and do both of these projects, are you as a Cedar City citizen or Iron County, I'm not even sure where you live, Dallin, are you willing to have a tax rate increase? Because we may have to have that to pay for this. I mean, that's just the reality of it.
I'm not saying everyone would be.
No, I know that. I'm not asking you to speak for other people. I'm just addressing this to you.
So as for me, yes, I would do way more than what the tax increase would be. I think you would probably know that. But,
yeah.
I would guess there's probably ways you could do both with some of the things that are going on, coming up due in the city and different things. I would bet that you could do both, but I would hope that you would do everything possible to do both without a tax increase, I guess.
Well, so would we, but the reality is that probably won't be the case.
Yeah.
I don't know that. Okay, thank you.
I have some comments I prepared. I'll send to Renan, and I apologize. It's just really rough bullet points. I've been on the phone for countless hours on this issue trying to figure out where I stand. But basically, as I understand it, a rec center of some kind has actually been in discussion since the 1970s. Some kind of rec center, regardless of what those amenities are. Details to be determined by the budget, the need, the market, and politics. So for one, the city needs to determine whether we're in the business of amenities or not. Personally, I tend toward the mindset that we shouldn't be in the entertainment industry. However, I represent 30,000 citizens, and just last summer knocked hundreds of doors asking people about their concerns. I've also reached out to dozens of people that I know and feel and think differently than myself to see where this community is on this issue. I think the people have spoken and stated that we want the city to provide amenities, especially those that are not provided by the private sector and that are accessible to all residents, regardless of their income. And I do appreciate your efforts in making sure that all kids can play, regardless of their financial status. Glacier approached City Council last year to find a permanent home for the ice rink and to bring money to the table. The city wasn't comfortable with many aspects of the private-public partnership, some of which were voiced in public meetings, some on social media, and some as whispers. The issues voiced by city staff and council ranged from liability, control, financing, even corruption, private profiteering on the taxpayer's dime, and competition with other city recreation efforts. And I know you guys have gotten really rich on skating. In approaching amenities, we want to minimize competition with the private sector, provide recreational opportunities to all citizens, especially those who can't afford private sector options, prioritize at-risk demographics such as low-income youth and isolated seniors, and serve as many citizens as possible per dollar expended. Gym and other amenities in the city plan for the facility and that's because my bullet points are bad, and I apologize for my bad grammar here, will serve a wide array of citizens, but we need to proceed carefully to ensure that low-income citizens have access, such as Glacier has done in ensuring all youth can play if they want. We also need to access community amenities and ensure programming does not compete with the private sector. Independent of who owns and operates an ice rink, it does provide a truly unique service not available between Las Vegas and the Wasatch Front. It boosts winter visits and creates more winter activity for the public. I remember as a college student, one of the only things to do was to walk through the sheep tunnels on a winter evening. I only did that a couple times, and then I got spooked. I think it's illegal now, actually. I don't know. What's the statute of limitations on that, Tyler? Oh, sorry. I'm well aware that we just had a planning meeting 3 weeks ago, and I do not want to rock the boat or alienate fellow council members or staff in any way. That being said, I'm new to the council. There's a steep learning curve, and in researching the issue more, I'd like to propose a general change, but I apologize. I lack the expertise and know-how on some of the particulars, upon which I do need to rely on my fellow council members and on staff. But while visiting the issue of expanding the rec center, I would really like to consider the possibility of adding a regulation size ice rink to the center or elsewhere at the same time, in consideration of these voiced concerns that the Staley's not profit from taxpayer money. It would be entirely city-owned and operated. This would add to the cost, but could help the entire community get behind this project. Instead of replacing one cherished amenity for another, we could make this rec center a destination spot for travelers while serving our community in a way that the private sector cannot. Even if the price tag of the addition of an ice rink to the center amounts to $4 million, we would still be able to do the entire expansion for less than the inflation-adjusted cost that the aquatic center costs the taxpayer. This is just a bullet point, but we do need to the center and the rink would likely need to be built at the same time because, like the city pool of old, there is no substitute good on the market right now. An entirely city-owned and operated ice rink would mitigate many of the concerns about liability, control, corruption, and continuity that were raised in public discussions while taking advantage of the infrastructure and amenities already bought and paid for by our taxpayers. I'd like to consider whether by council vote or ballot or whatever other measure, the possibility of building a rec center that the entire community can get behind and that will especially provide residents, youth, seniors, and tourists with critical winter activities regardless of income that enhance our quality of life and make Cedar City a better place to live.
All right. Are there other council comments? I will, this isn't an official public hearing. I am going to, for 30 minutes, let the public speak on this item if there are no further council comments at this time.
If your father is here, he should go first so he doesn't miss Hogan's Heroes.
We only have 30 minutes, so I think
Okay. All right, we will start all right.
Hello.
want to invite my girls up to stand with me.
Okay.
My name's Krista Kay. I'm the new skating director for figure skating and Learn to Skate this year. I just moved to Cedar City, and this rink is like no other I've skated at. I've been skating for 20 years. I've been coaching for 14 years. I've been through many, many rinks, and no group of skaters has more heart than these girls right here. They're there every opportunity that they have to skate. They work hard, they listen, they learn, and it's a beautiful thing. They've worked so hard for so many years, and to take the rug out from under them so suddenly is heartbreaking to me as a coach. And this decision did feel rushed. There's time to build the rec center, whatever it may contain. There's time. We had a lease agreement that goes through next year. I would ask that you at least honor that agreement. These children have worked so hard. We've planned for next year. We're planning to go down a couple times a month to continue their skating education in Las Vegas, up in Salt Lake, wherever we can find ice as they have the time to do so with their schooling. This is not something that is recreation to them. It's not something that's entertainment purely. This is building their character. This is building This is building the future of this city. And I would not be the person that I am without skating. It taught me dedication. It taught me perseverance. It taught me it's okay to fall down as long as you get back up every time and try again. I just can't imagine taking that away from the youth of this community. And it's not just these girls. We had 112 students in Learn to Skate this year. Everything from adults to little bitty kids, 3 years old. And a lot of those were families. You know, the basketball programs are great. The soccer programs are great. But this is them sending their kids out there. See you at the end of the game. This was something that families could do together. We had so many families that came and skated together as a family. They learned together as a family, and they practiced together as a family, and nothing can replace that bond. So I sincerely hope that you will consider, at the very, very least, honoring the lease agreement that you made with the Staleys and continuing to let the ice rink operate through next year. The rec center can be built there after. Hopefully we can make amenities to contain an ice rink, but if not, at least give these girls and these boys of the hockey team one more year. Just one.
Hello, my name is Dean Jameson. I'm a little emotional myself right now. Thank you for this time. I'm a transplant from Pennsylvania. I've sent a letter to each one of you, told you the youth program back in Pennsylvania and how my son's hockey club turned into a hockey league around South Central Pennsylvania. That can happen here. And recently we had a traveling team from Salt Lake City come down. I believe it was the 12-year-olds. And they had the perfect idea. We are in the middle between Salt Lake and Las Vegas. If we have a sheet of ice here, we can have tournament play as one thing we can do with that ice hockey sheet. To have these groups come down to Cedar City, stay in our hotels, buy our gas, buy our food in our restaurants, buy products from our city stores, and have competition on ice, a friendly competition. So being in the middle, that saves Las Vegas from driving all the way to Salt Lake all the way to Las Vegas. We're right in the middle. Why not? What is the upside potential of this? It's great. It's really great. So we've already probably thought about it when we have that study for the new extension to the current Aqua Center. Can we, I'm sure you're going to say yes, I hope. Can we add the ice rink as part of that engineering project in that corner where you had pointed out on the map previously? And just make that part of the study, the engineering study. That's what I'm just asking for.
We actually did that last summer. Yep.
Okay. And so
all the renderings, the estimates.
Okay, great. So we have that knowledge and we have the support from both sides. I'm not I wasn't involved with the Staley Rec whole thing. I'm just here to help coach hockey.
So when we went,
That's
through,
all I'm here for.
When we went through it last summer, the conclusion that was reached was the back was set up for the gyms, and that's what's going to go there. And if we want to do hockey, we got to move it to some place
That's
different.
I agree. Yep, 100%. But like we've been asking, give us that last year to get the studies done, the funding done, the support, so we can move this facility
And
and not have a gap.
Yeah, we've been working. That's what we thought. Just so you know, that's where we thought we were going with this lease. We've been working on that exact concept
Right.
for probably the past year, 2 years, for this exact thing that you're asking for. The back work that you're asking for is already done.
So as Dallin mentioned, without Staley West involved, is it still optional, possible, feasible to have an ice rink for this community? So these children, the figure skaters, the hockey skaters, everybody. I'm a senior citizen and I skate and I coach. So don't rule us out either. Don't rule us out. Can we make it happen?
You look feisty enough that I would not rule you out.
Yes.
So
Yes. And I play softball in the fields and I love the rec program. Jennifer Weaver is a fantastic person. And I hope she can be a part of this as well as all the basketball community. We all be one solid community, support all the sports.
And that statement right there is probably one of the best things I have heard. Is we are not here to pit one rec program against another. We do not put basketball, volleyball, badminton, softball, soccer, ice, hockey, figure skating. Nothing is better or worse than the other. We are a community. All of these are amenities for our residents. And that has been one thing that has happened repeatedly over the past few years. Is it's hockey's better than basketball. Basketball's better than hockey. None of them are better or worse than any of the others.
No.
They are all, and they all take different preferences. And just like you said, it's even better if we can participate in multiple ones.
Right.
And so as far as saying, can the city do it? That is something that we're going to have to talk about. We thought we were working, truly, and I keep repeating this, we thought we were working towards that. We had pledged $2.85 million towards that goal of doing both. This council had voted and said, we want both. We want to partner. We want to do that. So they made that commitment to pledge that. Then we got that letter, and I keep referring back to it because just like everybody in here says we got the rug pulled out from under us, the city feels the exact same way. When Dallin walked in and handed us that letter, we feel like, and I will speak for, I feel like this, I am assuming the fellow council members from the conversations and the shock of that night, we all feel like we got the rug pulled out from under us as well. And so can we make both? That was their original goal and their original intent. But now it is financially, it's going to be decisions and all of that aren't going to be made here and now tonight. But this support will not go unnoticed. We appreciate all of you coming. I really appreciate the respectful manner. I will say that the social media blasting the city is not helping anyone's cause. All of that is actually hurting the cause of the ice rink. Talking and just blasting one another is hurting everyone's cause because it just destroys the community. And that is not what we are here for. So we can work together, but we've got to stop the fighting and the backbiting and all of that. And your comments about how you do different sports, that is what we want to build as a community. My tangent is over. We'll let the next one speak. Thank you.
Yeah, you're there 30 minutes.
No, I actually stopped there 30 minutes. I stopped your 30 minutes for my tangent.
Well, thank you very much. And I want to just say, I hope I can leave. I hope we can all leave this meeting with hope for the future. for everybody, a good way. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Dave Staley, and I asked permission from everyone else in line if I could just come up. I just need to respectfully clarify a couple of things to you also, because you weren't at the meeting the night that the vote was taken. And I really don't want to go back in time like Dallin said too, but we do need to clarify for everyone here what was actually said and the conditions that were put forward that night when the amended agreement and how it had been written was voted on. We did make a statement that we had thoroughly been through the agreement, just so you know. I want you to be really clear on this too, Mayor. We went through the agreement very thoroughly. There were a number of very serious problems with the agreement that did put a lot of financial risk on us individually. And I'm not going to go into the details of that because you guys all know, all of you know what those were. We discussed them at length that night. So it was nothing like the original proposal, which we knew we were at the mercy of the city council on the original proposals as well. So yes, we acknowledge that. But before the vote was taken, we clearly made a statement, I personally did, that it was not an acceptable agreement in the form that it was written, and that passing it would basically constitute a no vote to the project. And you guys all know that I said that. And if you want to go back to the minutes or watch the video, you will see that that was said. And I don't want to go into the details of it because it's just what it is now at this point. But we did indicate immediately before the vote was taken that we could not accept that agreement, but we still had to meet as a board because I am not the whole board. And so the board got together, we agreed that what we had stated here before the vote was taken, we did have to stand by. And so just so you're clear, it wasn't us that pulled any rugs out. And I won't say it was you guys that pulled any rugs out because the rug was never really there to be pulled out from under. When you made the vote, you knew already what our answer would be. It was just stated in a letter because you knew ahead of time before you took the vote that that's what it would be. So that I want to just make perfectly clear. We did have a concern that it might be misconstrued by anyone that the city made this offer, assumed that it was going to go through. And so when we presented the letter, it could be made to appear that it was Staley Rec Management that pulled out of the deal. That is not true. That is not true, no matter how anyone construes that. We worked through the whole process of trying to get this agreement. Like Dallin said, we made a lot of mistakes in even letting it go down certain roads. And had we been smarter, we would have just said at the time, we can't do that before it came to the council. So anyway, that's really all I want to say about that. I really don't have any hard feelings toward anyone. I know that there were things on both sides of the Facebook issue or other social media things. It wasn't just the hockey side.
No.
And so I think everybody knows that there were things said quite a bit from all parties involved. And I can honestly say it was never me because I don't do Facebook. So Dave.
But can I ask you something? Do you agree that all sides are better than that, and all sides need to stop the back and forth Facebook?
And I think we can call on all of the people here, and we can call on all of us on this end.
That's what my goal is.
And I do agree.
Two of us, if you can help and I'll help, let's call a truce on the Facebook dissing our community and backbiting both entities.
Now, I'm not sure if you're not an actual Facebook addict, if you can be
You can still be an advocate.
Can I be an advocate without having been an addict? Okay.
Sure.
Okay,
Tonight you are Facebook advocate as far as a truce goes.
Okay, and I think the people here will listen when we say, let's keep it up front, let's keep it honest, let's keep it clean. Let's not make any inferences about how something happened or something didn't happen. And in fact, I'd really like to see us just put all that behind, say we all made some mistakes. We were all a little possibly not matured well in negotiations. I had never seen an agreement like that personally in all my business dealings. I'd never seen something like that happen. So I was honestly kind of unprepared myself for that.
Dave,
So anyway.
Before you go, I do have one point I
Yes.
would like to clarify, and I don't want to put you on the spot.
Go ahead.
And I don't know what your answer is going to be. I know one of the big holdups, whether publicly stated or privately, was concerns that you could turn this into a profiteering scheme on the taxpayers' time.
Oh, thank you.
And
yeah, go ahead. Do you want to finish the question?
If the city were to wholly fund and operate, subject to donations or something like that, an ice rink, would you still support it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if any of you, I know that most of you are experienced in entity structure. We purposely organized this as a nonprofit entity so that actually I don't own anything. I have no way to profit from anything that was even proposed to be done. As Dallin stated earlier, this isn't about us. I can tell you, and my wife will be mad because she's here tonight for the first time being at a meeting, but I think that we've expended personally probably upwards, if not exceeding $200,000 so far in the effort, includes money that we've expended toward different phases of evaluating the process, and a lot of time that Dallin was paid for from our wage and our wage expenses at Staley West. We felt like it was worth moving forward, trying to get something done that was good for the community. So yes, that I will never see that money back, and I never would have either. And I don't really care, to be honest with you, about that. The other thing is we do have some money in reserve that, since I personally own the entity, the LLC that has the ice equipment up there right now, which we've been getting a small lease from each year. And I think there's around $50,000 or something like that in the account that has accrued over time. And if the city were to move forward with a proposed publicly built arena, I would donate all of that to that. Unless we're allowed to continue to operate for another year, which I would hope we could in order to get other things done in time, we may need some of that to continue repairs and upkeep on the existing equipment. But anything that's left over there, I don't need it. I'm not a rich man, honestly, but I just never considered that as part of my personal budget. I haven't brought this up to the board, but Dallin and I discussed this also. If there are funds remaining in the nonprofit entity and it goes to a public entity that builds and operates the rink, we have to get rid of that money somewhere. And so I would propose strongly to the board, and I think that they would go along with the idea of also donating that money toward the construction of the new rink. And that would be another substantial sum, somewhere near what we would take out of the lease money that we've gotten over the years for the equipment. So we're happy to do that. And, if we really do well in business, my wife will again really maybe kick my butt after this, but I'm not saying that we wouldn't be willing to do more than that too. But I think that there needs to be a restart on the idea. I think if this is going to happen, it has to be a clean slate. It really does. We have to put all this other stuff behind us.
Yep.
I think that there is room still. I'm not going to promise anything because I don't know how the people that were anticipating donating time, materials in kind, those kind of things. We had a lot of support, up to about $800,000 worth of things that had been kind of pledged, not officially, but said. I don't know if those people will still be willing to do that or not. But we would certainly put an effort toward that if there was a decision to move forward, to see if at least some of that might be garnered in the project. And I don't know if it will be or not, but it would be nice if somebody would. The thing that we ran into with the agreement was, with provisions of the agreement, it really raised concerns from potential donors because of the high risk factors that were written into the agreement. And I know we did lose some support because of the way the agreement was written. And so that that's again in the past. So whether we can get a fresh start, and if the Golden Knights were somehow able to come in, they really don't want to see this die here. And they're not the most important reason or people that we care about whether it continues or not. It's everybody else. I guess that, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank
Never,
you.
never, ever was there ever an idea that we would profit from something. And as far as corruption's concerned, I guess I'll have to ask for character witnesses on that. I know who I am and I know my heart. So anyway, any other questions while I'm here? I would just say, like Dallin said, remember that we either kill an entire sector of the recreation world here that has really grown in a very grassroots and organic way, or we find a way to go forward. And I trust Dallin. You can see he's pretty emotional about the whole thing, and it is for the people that are here and many, many others. But I know that when he said he would give help wherever help was needed, whether that was to whatever entity operated the rink, whether it was the city or someone else, he does. And there's a lot of other resources behind us here that can really, really help carry it forward without really a wrinkle in the programs. If we do lose that completely for a year or two or three while we're trying to iron it out, that would really set it back in a very serious way. So I guess that's what I have to say.
And I guess one final note real quick along that, if we for whatever reason can't do it right away, I would love to try to find a way that the city can work with you in finding another temporary home, if it's for a year or two, because it is the only, it's not like ice rinks are plentiful in every church building or anything.
Right.
So
right. And just one more add to that comment. One thing I've learned by sad experience a few times is rushing into things often doesn't pay off real well. And if we do move the rink before it has a place to go, it's expensive to move it. It's expensive to set it back up again, take the money to do the electrical, all of the volunteer work that went into the installation of that rink where it is amazing. There were thousands of hours of people just giving of their time and talents and resources. And I mean, if you guys would have I wish we had a time lapse video of all the people and all the work that had been done to bring it to where it is. It was kind of hard to maintain this year. There were a few major little leaks and stuff that we had to chip through the frozen ground to get to and fix. But you know what? There's resilient people that are involved that just stuck with it until it got done. And so the rink didn't have any days of non-operation because of it. I would propose that the city entertain a motion to hold off on the Mac Center until we're able to work something out and let it stay there just a little bit longer so that we don't have to move it before something else comes into play. And I honestly don't see what that would hurt. I think all of our parents have told us at one time or another, if it's good today, it'll be good next year or the year after, and you don't have to get everything you want right now. And you could say that to us too, but we've certainly worked hard to keep it floating along. And it's been quite a job to do it. So your consideration on that would be deeply appreciated. Thank you.
My name is Sean Cotton. I've been involved with the ice rink for 7 years now. And Dave kind of took at the last moment what I was going to say of I think there needs to be a pause, a reset between the city and the citizens at this point. Whatever negotiations were in place have obviously fallen apart, and a reset button needs to be fixed. I had the pleasure of being the Cedar American president for the last 2 years. And I could tell you that right now, if the baseball community of this town felt like their backs were against the wall because the baseball fields were going to be turned into parking lots or apartment complexes, there would be outrage. And that's the way that this hockey community is feeling right now. We're feeling like we are on the precipice of losing everything. So I agree with you, Mayor. There has been a lot of things that have been said on social media that should not have been said. I appreciate Councilmember Melling's proposal to encompass everything. And as a citizen, as a taxpayer, as a homeowner, I beg you guys to please just pump the brakes and see where this can go. Hit the reset button and make everybody in this community happy. My kids play multiple sports. I think recreation is an amazing thing. It needs to happen. It teaches kids teamwork. It teaches them how to work together. Right now, having these kids watch us talk in a very calm and collected manner is explaining to them that this is the way the future needs to be going. Okay, not Facebook. I think that all needs to be put in the past. So I just want to thank everybody for their time, and I really appreciate the considerations you are going to now make for the ice rink.
My name is Adam Ellington. I moved to Cedar City when I was in middle school. I was not well received by most of the typical sports, but I was taken in by the swim team. That pool is very near and dear and passionate to me. I left with the Army. I did 3 tours in Afghanistan, and when I finally brought my son home, you would be ashamed to see how he was treated by the baseball teams. But he was so welcomed and loved by these people. And taking that rink from him is wrong. And how this lease was done has me questioning a lot of things. I beg you, please reinstate the lease and do not take this from our families. Thank you.
Hello, Nathan Breinhold again. Been volunteering with this hockey league for about 5 years now. I've seen these little kids come in here like this. I'll give you an example. My son wouldn't do any sports. He didn't like the baseball kids, didn't like the football kids. I grew up baseball. And so my wife decided she wanted to put him into hockey to try it. He wanted to become goalie so he didn't have to run. Okay. So he didn't have to do ladders. And with the awesome coaches that we have, he competed in the state championship last year for the high school team, and he was selected in the all-star team. He was made Utah All-Stars, and that's what our program has built. And now I've watched these kids, these awesome kids. We've all become a family. Now I'm just going to beg you now to reconsider your taking the rink out right now and honoring the lease for another year. It will destroy these kids and this whole family of the hockey and the ice dancers. The ice dancers they're pretty awesome. Please reconsider that and allow us to have another year to make another plan. And I guarantee you, I personally guarantee you my time and a lot of these guys to help build it. If you were to build a rink, you would save on your costs. We would volunteer again. I would still volunteer. I would work 40 hours and then go volunteer for 40 hours, just like I did before. Thank you.
My name is Miles Fain, and I'd like to let you know if you took this rink away, it'd affect lots of kids, and I'd like to invite you to our awards and dinner ceremony on Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, guys. My name's Sherry Rudd. I was on the front line of this project in 2011 when Yeti became a nonprofit organization, along with the Fain family, the Moss family, and the Burketts. The last two were from St. George. Their kids played the entire time up until they've graduated. To say putting blood, sweat, and tears into this program would be an understatement with the amount of time that people put into it. Thankfully, the city did gamble on us. And you're right, this was supposed to be a temporary spot for the ice rink. It's a stepping stone. So now I want to address the constituents that are here. If 4 women could have brought this many people together, then we can do it again. We have a bigger community. It'll be better than what's up there because these people are not going to allow our ice rink to stay. So we need to come together as a community and put forth our foot to create our own ice rink. We don't need them. We have our own community to do this. And these people, if they don't allow us another year there, we're going to the polls and we're going to vote them out. That's all I have.
So my name is Wesley Taylor, and I wrote this letter last night to all these people, the city council and Mayor Wilson, and if that's okay, can I read it?
Uh-huh.
So I said, Dear City Council and Mayor Wilson, my name is Wesley Taylor. I am 9 years old and go to Three Peaks Elementary. I'm writing to you because I play hockey and I love it. This year was my first year and it was fun. And now I play street hockey. I play with my street hockey stick and my dad is goalie. And I love it. Can we either save the rink or build a new one so I can still play? From Wesley.
Thank you so much, Wesley.
He did that on his own. My name's Justin Taylor. I'm Wes's dad. I don't want to take up too much time, but I think it needs to be emphasized on both sides, some of the comments that you made, Mayor, about working together. We are a community, and I'm not going to try to mince words as to where we all stand and where we're at, because really I've learned more tonight than I have since my son has been involved with this program. I think it's important that we do acknowledge that it sounds to me like mistakes have been made on both sides. And that, yeah, a clean slate would probably be to the benefit of everybody here. But we already seen in the world today a lot of division over so many things, and it gets worse. It gets made worse by the ability to communicate under the anonymity of social media with one another, and not really to be able to come together as a community and work where we can look each other in the eyes and voice our opinions and do it in a manner that's constructive and not destructive. I know how it is to be passionate about something. I was a football player, and I've lived here all my life. I played at Cedar High and I played for SUU both. And I know what it's like to have that kind of thing going on. I think that we, on both sides especially, need to realize that we've got a lot of young influences here with us tonight. And how we act and how we approach these things gets remembered really, really, really well by these kids. And they do need to be able to continue with what they've got, and what the answer is, I don't know. Like I say, I'm a little late to the game, but we got to remember that, everybody. We are a community, and any way we cut it, whether we agree with what goes on with this project or any of the other projects that you guys deal with, we elected you, and we need to remember our responsibility on that side, and just the same as we expect you guys to remember who you represent. It's easy to get caught up in these things with our own opinions and what we think is best, but we need, we need to remember that we are a community, and if we lose that, then we're losing a lot more than a hockey rink. I just want to leave that with you guys and say I appreciate the time tonight. Thank you very much for hearing us out.
Hi, my name's Chad Fain, and I was kind of hoping that the half hour would be up.
I was going to say, we have about 5 more minutes, so you made it in there.
Okay. First off, I'd like to thank everybody here for allowing this to go on for me. I mean, been here as long as Ron and you, Mayor. What I'd like to say is it's a bunch of adults bickering and trying to figure out how to get things done here, when all that matters to me as a coach, I've coached ever since the beginning and before. To me as a coach, all that matters is the kids. And I think if everybody could put contracts and property and everything aside and focus on the youth and the kids, which is the future of this community, it's a very easy decision. We don't need to be where the MAC Center is going to be. We don't need to be in a parking lot. I mean, personally, I believe that with the $2.8 million, we could put an airport hangar building up at the edge of the town in the city. And that would be just as fine. It'd be paid for and done. We'd be out of everybody's hair and we could just have our own building and it'd be year round. But that sounds simpler than, easier said than done. But I think we just need to keep in mind that number one priority here is our youth and our children. And as long as you put that first, everybody will come to the right decision and the right conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Will you pull the mic? There you go.
Hi, my name is Virgil.
What's your last name, bud?
Emily.
Okay, there we go.
And I played hockey for 2 years, and it's my favorite thing to do in the winter. Please don't take it away from these kids that play hockey. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Trevor Heaton, and I thank you guys for your service. I understand the many hours you spend solving many issues that we have. I wasn't going to get up here and talk today, but I received a call. I was at a training in Salt Lake City, and guess who called me? It was my son, Mitchell. I appreciate a couple things today. I appreciate him being able to understand that there's a process that we go through in government where we have an opportunity to give our say and to show you how much we care about issues. And I think that's really important for these kids today. There is a forum that we get to come and we get to voice our opinion and say what we think. That being, Mitchell, every day before practice, he is roller skating around my kitchen for an hour and a half before practice. And then he makes me go to practice. I don't know why I'm emotional whenever I talk from people. I get this way. He goes a half an hour before we're supposed to because he wants to be ready to wait for the ice machine to go around, wait and watch it go around so he can be on that ice in a heartbeat. That's something that will be difficult to maintain if he has no place to go. In government, we have a chance to listen to the public. I think we've had 2 tax bills at the state legislature that they backed off of because of public comment. So I think that aspect of government is very important. I think we can take time to listen to what the concerns are of the people, and then we can make decisions based on those comments, depending on how we feel that we're representing our constituents. I think the kids need a place to play. I think if we take that away from them and go a year and a half without a place to play, it will be difficult to get that back. That these guys have been playing hockey now for a lot of years, and they're invested. They love it. So if we could possibly have a place to play and then have a permanent place to play, I would really appreciate it. And I appreciate Mitchell for what he does to support the sport that he loves.
My name's Chris Hazard. I've coached for the last 5 years with the hockey organization. I want to thank the Fanes for everything they've done as far as the hockey organization. I want to thank the Staleys for everything they've done with hockey. And I want to thank you guys for letting us be where we have been. And my experiences with this hockey, I've grown as a person. I've seen numerous kids come up in this program and grow as a person as well. And I think that's what community is about, is growing us as people and as members of a community, not as per se a hockey player or a baseball player. It's not what we produce out of this town and have a claim to fame. It's what we do as a community and create active members. I mean, I've had, I don't know how many kids that come out and they don't know how to skate. And I am more proud of those kids getting up off the ground than I am the guys that scored 5 goals in a game. And that's awesome to see, because you don't see that. You hear stories of people quitting because they weren't treated fairly. And that is extremely unfortunate, but you don't see that in this program. It's something in the community that, we talk about in the winter, there's not much to do. And in some of these notes that I've read of some of the meetings, you want something for families to go do. Dallin has talked on that about families coming to the rink. This provides another opportunity, another outlet in the winter for families, for children, for everybody in this community to go be active instead of other options that they have, which aren't many in winter. So I would ask as well that we have more time and a pause button is hit, and more time in our location to figure something out. And that's all I have. Thank you.
We have hit 30 minutes, so if there is any new information, we'll do that. But if there isn't, then we're kind of at our 30-minute mark for our public comments.
Okay, I'm just here to add support to the previous one, so
Perfect.
that's all I'm going to do.
The rest of you, we'll do this. Is everyone just adding support and showing how much they appreciate the rink and what it has done? Raise your hand. Spectacular. Thank you. Thank you so much.
What's your name?
But yes.
Sam Critton, I'm the president of the SU Hockey Club here.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks very much.
So truly, this has been a very civilized meeting. I appreciate how everyone has participated, especially with the youth here. I think that speaks volumes. I want the youth of this community to grow up and realize that this is the appropriate way government should work, that you can come and you can voice and you can disagree, but we can disagree while still being part of the same community. We can disagree while still supporting one another, and we can disagree on different issues while still talking and not what we see on a national level. So truly, thank you to each one of you for being here, for expressing your opinions, and for doing so in a way that we all feel like we heard you, and I hope you feel like you got a chance to be heard, and especially for our youth. The adults are important, but the youth are truly way more important than all of us. And so thank you for the way you acted and the respect you showed each of them. So with that, is there anything else the council would like to add? And if not,
can I thank everybody for your participation tonight and move that we adjourn this meeting?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye. Well,
Must have been